Hello, this is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and welcome to the Contact Scheduler from scratch. In this week's training, I'm going to show you how to create this incredible shape-based contact scheduler, and we're going to be able to add new appointments, select on existing appointments, and we're going to do it completely from scratch, starting with a blank worksheet. Every function, every formula, every conditional formatting, and every line of VBA code we are going to write. I cannot wait, so let's get started. All right, thanks so much for joining me this week. I am really excited. Another from scratch training. I know many of you like these from scratch, and we can do them on smaller applications, sometimes bigger applications. We can do just by going over the code that I've already created. That way we can keep the trainings down to hopefully around 2 hours or less. We'll see how this one goes. But let me know what your thoughts are. This channel is for you. I create things for you, what you like. So you've got to let me know what you like. Do you want to see more from scratch training that are a little bit more basic, or do you want to see larger applications, a little more complex, a little more feature rich, and then I'll go over every line of code? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll make sure to get you those. And I'm also going to be creating a playlist, a from scratch playlist. So if you only like from scratch videos or you prefer those, I'll put those all into a single playlist so you can watch those. All right, we've got a lot to cover this week. We're going to get started. But before we do that, I want to make sure that you do get subscribed. That's really important. And of course, click the notification icon bell. That helps you get these trainings. I create them free for you each and every Tuesday. Even this template is absolutely free. You can click the links down in the description, either with your email or Facebook Messenger, and we're going to get that sent over right to you. However, if you would like every single one of my templates, 250 of my best templates, I now have that available. We're just launching this week for a very low discounted price. That's 250 of my best templates. And also I'm going to throw in a complete library, and that means that you can single click on the workbook to open or single click the associated training video, and that's a really nice. So I've got 250 of those now in a single zip file for download at a discounted price. That will help set up and you up for success when you have all of my templates, and also help us out too. If you want to keep these trainings for free, that's a great way to support the channel. All right, let's get started. This is what we are going to be creating, right? We're going to be creating this contact schedule. We're going to be able to navigate months, and we're going to be able to refresh the schedule. We'll be able to select different years if we want to. We will also be able to select from contacts and assign a contact. We'll be able to create new contacts here if we want to click new contacts, saving a contact or deleting a contact. We'll also be able to select on any given appointment and have those appointment details show up, have the contact name show up. All right, we'll be able to add pictures to a contact if we browse it. We will also be able to actually save or update a contact, and of course we'll actually show the contact details inside each individual appointment along with a picture. And we're going to be able to color code those appointments. Those color codes are going to be based on here, the appointment status. We're going to be able to customize and set those up. This admin will keep. And we're also going to be set our own customized weekday along with setting a times list. We've got appointments, a list of appointments, and contacts. So there's a relatively simple application, yet powerful and fully feature rich. Okay. All right. So that's what we're going to be doing. Now I'm going to close this workbook out, and we're going to start from scratch, at least on the sheet itself. So here's what I've got for you. This is going to be our scheduling sheet. We still have our admin here. We've got our appointments and we've got our contacts. So we've got a list of contacts here, and then our schedule. So we're going to be building out this schedule. First, we're going to add in all of the associated calendar and the schedule and the formulas. Then we'll take care of some of the functions, conditional formatting. We'll add in the buttons, the icons, and then we're going to get into VBA, and we're going to make that become alive and show you how we can do that. Every step is going to be associated. We're going to go over every step of the way, every formula, every function, every feature right here, right now. So stick with us. All right, so let's just go over an overview of what we have now. This particular, remember, we have some contact pictures. If we take a look inside our contacts, contact name, ID, address, phone number, basic information, and we have a picture. Now this picture here is associated with a picture inside a folder that we have. So I've got a folder here with all of our contact pictures. And you'll notice the names of these pictures are associated with the contacts. That's going to help us associate different appointments with different contexts. And we also need to browse for a folder. So we can browse for that folder. It's going to tell us what folder we have. If I want to browse for a folder, I can browse for that folder. I've already done that in there. I'm going to view. I'm going to show that formula bar so we can see that. And we see that that's already browsed, right? I already have it in my contact pictures, okay? Make sure that when you get this file or template, you browse for your own folder where you have. If you like all the pictures and all the icons and everything, I'm gonna put all of that inside a resources zip file, and that's going to be for our Patreon members. In fact, for our Patreon members, I'm probably going to make this schedule drag and drop. So make sure you sign up on Patreon. I'll include the links down below. We've got tons of great resources going on there. Okay, so we want to set a start date. We'll stick on a Sunday, but I want that start date to be dynamic based on the scheduler. I also want to set colors, as we mentioned before, be able to set colors so that we can set dynamic appointment statuses and have colors associated with them. I also want to set some contact types so we can set different types based on contacts. And then I have a list of times and duration. Okay, so I've got some formulas already set up. Let's go over some of the name ranges that I already have set up. Okay, so we've got a weekdays, right? So I've got a weekdays here. If we tab over, we see that that's based on those weekdays. I've got a start day, that's based on the start day that was selected, located in D6 right there. So actually D8 right there. Okay, I also have a contact pic folder, right? So this is the folder that's associated. This is a named range called contact picture folder. And then this, we don't need an icon folder. I'm going to delete that because we don't need that. It's from a prior training. I've got times here. Times is located here. All of our times associated. These are for our appointment times. They're just separated by 15 minutes. I've got a duration, a named range for all the durations, all the way up to 12 hours, so we can have a large appointment. And I've got some criteria that we're going to go over in a stack. That these two have to do with our advanced filter, so we'll be able to have those inside an advanced filter. Advanced filter creates these automatically. A status, right? I've got a status, so we know that we have a particular status for appointment status right here. And I've got the contact types here, contact type and named range, dynamic named range for contact types. We have an appointment ID, right? An ID for all the appointments, right? Each individual appointment have its own unique ID, and we've got a named range for that. I also have the appointment date results. We'll get into this one in just a little bit later on, the appointment date results. I've got a contact ID, so based on the contact ID here, let's go into the contact ID. And we can see a list of contact IDs here, so that's all for the associated contacts. We also have contact names. So if I'm looking at the contact names, I want a dynamic named range based on the contact names. And also another one for the contact picture. Here, if we tab over, we can see the contact picture. So that's going to help us out as well. And then we're going to have years. I'm going to add that into the schedule. This is going to be years. It's blank now. A start day number. I'm going to add that into the schedule. And we have month start. So there are 3 different named ranges that we're going to be adding the data for inside the schedule. And we're going to get to that right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. All right, so we have an understanding of what the admin and all of our named ranges. We've got a schedule here that's blank. We've got appointments that have already been set. Our appointments include appointment ID, a contact name, an appointment date, an appointment time, the duration, the status, right, and some notes that we have it. Our contacts include all the regular contact information. Okay, great. So let's get started on this. What I want to do is I want to use the first 2 columns for admin, right? So those are going to be hidden, right, once you complete it. So I'm just going to color those gray. If you've been with these trainings before, you see that in the past, right? I'm going to give those a gray color. I'm going to drop this down because we're going to be using it a lot for a while, and then we'll bring it back up. Okay, so then what I want to do is I want to also highlight the first row here. I want to give it a fade out color. So we'll go all the way over to, let's say, about O or something like that. And then we'll give it this nice color here. We'll use a green here. Whoa. Okay, and then I'm going to format those cells. Sorry, it's off the screen. And then what we'll do is we'll give it a fill. And I want to give it a fill effects because I want 2 different colors. And I'm going to start out with this green, this medium green color, and we'll go to a little bit lighter green color here. And we'll select that from darker to lighter and click OK. On the next row down, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing very similar color here. And then we're going to right click and format those cells here. Give it a fill effects. And then I'm going to go just with the lighter green color. So I'm going to choose this one here and then the lighter one here. This lighter one's going to be our standard background color. And then click OK. All right, great. So now what I want to do is I want to go just all the way down here to maybe a larger row here. And then again, all the way to O and give it that basic color here. That's that green color here that we're going to be using. Okay, so we have our basic. And also what I want to do is I want to give it a title and I want to give it an icon. Now we're going to use the same ones here, so I'm going to hold the control down. I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to go into the schedule and I'm just going to paste it right here. Okay, that's going to give us our basic one. And I know we're going to be extending all the way to, say, around M. So I want this centered. So let's go ahead and move over here. And I want it to be right about here. This column's too large. So let's bring it over here as we move over. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to extend it to about M, and that's going to be sufficient. So what we're going to do is I want to have, as you saw here, I want to have our main information here. So our contact here. Then I want to have the details here. Then I want a spacer. And then I want our scheduler to start right here. So this is going to be the day. Then we're going to have our buttons up here. So I wanted to show this all the way up here is going to be a dark green because I want to show that all the way through M. It's going to be our days, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday through Saturday or whatever. I'm just going to go directly through M. So I'm going to give that a darker green color, something about like this with our theme. And then I'm going to do the same one on the day here, the same one. This is going to be the day number. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then what I'll do is maybe I'll color this a little bit differently so we can separate that, maybe slightly a different color, right? So I'll go with something I'll actually want more colors, and I just want to go slightly less, and this is the color, that's the color I'd like to use. Okay, so that's the color I'd like to use, and I want to have this same color for every day, so we want to skip. I'm going to have basically 5 rows in between, so I want to start our first one out on 5, and then I want to go all the way to 10, and then our next one's going to be on row 10, right? So skipping 5, and then our 10 is where we want to paste it. So I'm going to paste that in 10. I also want to paste it in 16, and I want to paste it in another one. So we're going to keep going there. So this is going to be for our days because I want to have 5 rows in between our rows. So 5 rows, then we're going to go another 5 rows here, and then we're going to paste it right here. So we'll want also 22. And I want, again, 25 rows here. And then we want to paste it in 28. And then also I want to paste it in 34. Okay, great. So we have 5 rows separating each one of them. So that's going to be our basic calendar here. And then another 5 rows is going to be our last one. So we're going to end our calendar on row 40. So 40 is so going 5 rows up here. 39 is going to be our last row. So 39, and then all the way up, then I'll just put some borders around it. So this is going to be our main calendar here. So I'm going to format that cell. So I'm going to put a border around it consistent with our color of our theme. So I'm going to use that dark green here and a little bit of thick border and go all the way around. Okay, and I also want to separate it between the days. So if I, again, format those cells, I'm going to put a little bit thinner border inside the days, this one, and then put a middle one here. That's going to be sufficient. Okay, so as our calendar starts to build out. So we have our main scheduler. We want to put our days here, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then I want some formulas in here. And then also here, what I want to do is I want to build, I'm going to reduce this size just a little bit because we have space. And then here inside our D3, I want to put select contact, right? Select contact, because I want the user to select the contact that's going to be used for who we're going to assign to the appointment. And then I want to color this white. Actually, we're going to go all the way down. So let's just say to about 9 here. That looks good. And then I'm going to color those all white, okay? Because those are going to be the entry fields, and I want to put borders around them as well. So our entry fields are going to be our appointment entry fields, as you saw from this sample. I'm going to put a large border around here because this is very important. So again, formatting the cell, sorry, it's off the screen here. And then we're just going to put a large border around here and a dotted line in the middle here vertically. Okay, good. So we're going to be able to select the contact from here. Now, the first thing I want to do is actually we'll skip a row here. So in 5, I'm going to put the appointment date. And then I want to put the appointment time. Then nextly, I want the duration. So we can select the duration. Then I want the status and then appointment notes. Okay, so we have all of that. And then this one will keep this green. So I'm going to use this because I need to put in some buttons. As you saw from the sample, I need to put some buttons up here. I want to put in new appointment, save, and delete. I'm going to put that in here. And then what I want to do is I want to skip, let's say, 2 rows. And then I want to put in some contact information starting on 12. So I'm going to put in name, type, this is for the contact, phone number, and I want to put in email, address, city, state, and then zip. Also want notes and then a picture all the way to 21. Okay, I like that. That looks good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to right justify these things. And I want to give it very specific formats here. So I'm going to do that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight those, holding down the control. Again, formatting those cells, going to the border here, right? And then what we'll do is we'll give it this round border all the way around. And then I want to give it a dotted line in the middle And then let's take a look here inside this line here, and then just putting that. Okay, that's what I like. Okay, good. And then we'll just color this white because those are going to be user entry fields. Okay, I like that. Things are looking really good. We have spaces for our buttons. And then I want to put in something specific for contact details. So I'm going to insert. I want a shape here. So I'm going to insert a shape. And I'm going to use a rounded rectangle, right? Rounded corners rectangle. And I want to insert it right here. So I'm going to put it in right about like that. But of course, I don't want the corners that big. I want them just very slight. And also, I don't want any fill. So we want no fill on that. And I want the shape outline the same as our colors here. Okay, I like that there. So what I want to do is I want to notate that these are contact details. So I'm going to insert here. And then I want to insert a text box here. So I'm going to do it in shapes, text box, and we're going to have it called contact details. So I'm going to put in this, I'm going to call it contact details. So now let's go ahead and format this, right? I want to make sure that we are adding those in. So we don't need anything. Let's go ahead and format that shape. And then what I want to do is in the text options here and the properties, I just don't want to have any margins here. So I'm going to get rid of all the margins on this particular text box. And I want to give it a background color. And I also want to, I want to center it, and then I want to give it a background color the same as our background, which is this one right here. Okay, so I like that, and I just don't want a border around it. So everything else is just fine, and I'm going to make it bold. So what we'll do is we'll go to the format, and then shape outline, no outline, and then we'll just make it bold. So home and then bold. I like that. That looks good. So we've got contact details, so we've encapsulated that. So we understand that. Then we have space above for our buttons. Perfect. I'm going to lower that just a little bit here and bring it down because I want to make sure there's enough space for the buttons on top. I like the way that looks. We can select a contact. Now, if we remember correctly, we have a named range called contact name. So if we go into the data and we go into data validation here, we want to put a list in here, and I want to use it. And I'm going to use F3 for that. And what we're going to do is we're going to look in contact name. And that's what we want, a contact name. So when we select a contact name, I want all those contact details to automatically fill in here. And I want to format this. This is going to be a date. I'm going to use a long date here. So we're going to use a long date. So that way when we do 5/20, that long date shows up. I'm going to left justify all of these here. I want this to be appointment time. We also have another one called appointment times, right? So let's go into the data validation here. Again, choosing list. And this time it's going to be size. So if we want to make sure, right, we want to look down here. We have one called times. That's based on the admin screen, that list of times. And also we want to give that a specific format too. So if I go into the home and I go into the times, right, actually we're going to go into, there's no more number formats. And I'm going to click on time and I'm going to choose this one right here. That's the one I want. And that's going to give us the time. Actually, we can use let's go ahead and do, that's the good for the duration. Let's choose one with the AM or PM, this one, sufficient. Now the duration is the next one. So we have a named range, again, for durations. So again, we're going to do this list. This time we're going to select durations. Again, F3 again, going into the durations. This time I also want to format that just like we did before. But this time I wanted it to be format. So we're going to go into home. Again, more number formats. And we're going to look under the time, and we're going to set this to this is the one I want for that. We want status. We have a named range for that as well. So going into the data validation here, list, and then F3 again, and then we're going to look in status. So we're going to go all the way down here and just click on status, clicking OK and OK. And appointment notes are free. So we've got, there we go. Now we've got name, everything here. We can add in that automatically. Okay, good. I like the way that that's looking. Let's go ahead and save our work, as we have done before. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add in some information here. So what do we want here? Well, what I want to do is I want a section. Basically, this is going to be for this section is going to be very specific for our scheduling. So I'm going to color these. This is going to be for our scheduling. We're going to use 8 through 10. I want to put some very specific colors here because this is going to denote for our appointment. So we're going to have appointment information, scheduling information, appointment information, and then next up I want to have contact information based on the selected contact, and that's going to go all the way through here. So we're going to give that a unique color as well, something like this green, and then we'll give it a border. So what do we want in here? Well, the first thing I want to know the selected year. Selected year, that's going to be there, what year is selected. And then what I want to know is the start day number. Start day number. What is that number? We'll go over that in a moment. I also want to know the month start. What is the date that we're going to start on? Month start. Next up, I want to have the selected month number. I want to know what month is currently selected, select month number. Also in A6, I want to have the selected year. What year are we selecting? That's going to help us build out that start date. And then I want to know the month header. We have a month header, right? Remember that month header we saw in the sample month header? That's going to be dynamic. Okay, next up, I want to have the selected appointment ID. If when we select an appointment, I want to know the ID of that appointment. So if it's 1 or what, I want to be able to calculate that. Then in 9, I want to know what is the appointment row, right? We have a list of appointments, and I want to know what row is associated with that. So we have the appointment ID row. And next up, I want to know the next appointment ID. What is the next appointment ID, right? If we have that. Lastly, I want to know all the contact information. So I want to know the contact name row. What row is associated with this contact name? I also want to know the selected contact ID. What is their ID? And the selected contact row, and also the next contact ID. So we can have, okay, so let's get all that information filled in. We're going to let's saving our work here. So the select year is going to be based on a drop-down list. I'll add that in just a bit. Well, we can add it in right now. Let's do that while we're here. But I also want to have a list of years, right? So let's go ahead and put in some years. So inside here, we're going to put years in, spell it correctly. And now what I want to do is let's start with the current year, 2022. Let's go down, let's add it all the way to 2030. So we'll go ahead and just put it all the way into, let's say, the 26 here. Move this over here so we can drag and drop all the way to, let's say, 26. Yeah, that's going to be good. Let's go ahead, 2023. Let's automate that. Let's add in at least one so that Excel knows that we're going to be adding it in. I like that, all the way to 2030. Going to center that, give it some unique colors so that we know it is very specific to this training. And then what we will do is I've got some named range already set up to help move us forward, and it's called years. So if we put a box around that, if we go inside here and we highlight this, we see that this is called years. That was a named range that I've added already. So formula, name manager, years, and we tab it over and we see that that's already years. Okay, great. So what I want to do on the scheduler is have a drop-down list so we can select a specific year. And I want that drop-down list tied to this B2. So let's go ahead and add that in now. Inside the developers, right, we're going to click on our insert here, and we want a form control. So I want this one right here, this particular one. Okay, so we're going to add that in. And what is that? Well, that's a drop-down list. So I'm going to bring it over here. Obviously, we won't want it that big. I'll put it towards the end, right in about on our last day. And we want that set to years. So I'm going to bring it here. We don't need to create it that big. The only thing we want on the right is a refresh button. That's be sufficient. So I'm going to right click that. I'm going to format the control. And we want the input range is equal to years. We also want the cell link, and that link is going to be to B2 right here. Click OK. Okay, so now when we select a specific year, we'll go ahead and we'll size it accordingly. Going out, when I select a specific year, we don't need it that big, right? Because it's just the years. That should be good, nice and small. So when I select the year, I want that number associated to B2, right? If I change this to 1, that's going to be automatically changed to 2022. That's perfect. So now we also need to let the user know what they're going to be selecting. So I'm going to insert a text box here. And we'll go in shapes and text box. And I want to let the user know what to select. So we're going to click select year, let the user know. Format this. We're going to center it, right justify it, bold it. Going into the format, right? I don't want any fill on that, or we could use no fill on that and no border on that. So let's go shape fill, no fill on that, and no outline on that. Good. So let the user know that they can select a year, bringing it over here. And we also want no border on that. Make sure there's no border. Good. That's what I want. And let's move it over a little bit over to here. Okay, perfect. So now what they can do, all they can do is just select the year. We're going to have a refresh button. It's associated to this. I like that. Perfect. And now what I want is I want to have the start day number. And what does that mean? That's going to be based on what start day they have selected inside the admin screen. So we're going to base it on weekdays. So I want to match it. That means what day is there? If it's Sunday, it would be 7. If it's Monday, it would be 1. So I want to know, notice this is start day. So what we're going to do is run a match. So I'm going to go back into the schedule, and I'm going to do this equals match. What am I matching? I'm matching the start day, and I'm matching it based on the weekdays, right? Because we have a list of weekdays that we've already went over, and I want an exact match. So I'm going to put 0. Okay, so that's 7. Notice when I change that to Monday, it's going to change to 1, okay? Because that's all. I just need to know what is the day number on there. So let's put it back to Sunday because I want my week to start on Sunday. So I'm going to keep that as 7. I want to know what day we're starting on. Next up, I want to know what is the month starting. What month are we starting? And that's going to be based on the selected month and the selected year. Okay, so let's say if my selected month is going to be based on, let's just say 5. That'll change. What is the selected year? Now I know the select year is based on this. So if I run a formula based on that, we can use index. So I'm going to do this equals index. And what am I indexing? That years, right? We created that named range years below. And what is the row number, right? We're going to use this row number, the selected right on B2. And then I want, of course, that column is 1. Okay, so that's going to get us our year based on what is selected. So notice as soon as we change this to 2023, it is also going to change here. Great. So now that I know the month, where the month is going to be changed, right? Not with the formula, but automatically with VBA. This number will change with VBA. So as we go previous month, this will reduce. As we go next month, this will increase. But I want to know the first day of this month. How do we know that? Well, we can just simply use the date function to do that. Okay, so equals date. It's going to let us know what is the year. We have the year here. What is the month? We have the month right here. And what is the day? Well, I want the first day of the month, so it's going to be 1. That's going to get us our date. That is our month start date of the month. I also want to know the header, right? So that header is going to be in a text box, right? So I've got a text box right here. I'm just going to duplicate this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it over here, and I'm going to center that, and I'm going to increase the font a lot, right? Let's put it about, let's say 25 or something like that. And then we'll give it a green. Okay, so I want that here, but I want that month number, month name and year. I want to show that here. So I'm going to do a large, give it a specific color to our theme, which is going to be this color. But what I want is some text. I'm going to based on the text. So I'm going to do equals. Now this is going to actually change the font again. So we're going to change it back again. Every time we do it, it's going to change that font. Notice that it changed the font. So here's what I want to do, right? There's nothing in here before. So let's go ahead and change it. All right, so let's do this. Let's add in that formula now so we know what is the month number. First of all, we're going to use upper because I want it all in uppercase. Equals upper. I want it all in uppercase. And what do I want to show? Well, I want to show the text because I want to format it based on what's in B4. But I want to give it a very specific format. I only want to show the month and I want to show the year. That's it. That's all I want to show. And then we're just going to close it out with 2 parentheses. Okay, so that's it. So here we see May 22. Now because we linked it after, we're going to have to, again, let's go ahead and put it up again. Bold it. Let's go to a different font here. Arial rounded would be good. I like that. That's consistent with our theme. So let's scroll up here and locate that font that I like right here. Okay, so good. And then we'll give it some colors. All right, I like that here. We can reduce it to about 22. Okay, very good. Bolded. Okay, so I like that. So we have the month. So as we change that month, so does that text. That's exactly what I want. Okay, perfect. So now we've got that, everything set up. We've got our name, got our information. Let's go ahead and continue down. So I want the selected appointment ID. If that appointment ID is 1, I want to know what row. VBA will place this ID, whatever appointment ID has been selected, and I want to know the row that's associated. What I mean by that is appointment ID 1 is going to be row 4. So how do I get that? Okay, so let's take a look at that. We can use the match for that. Equals if there's an error, I want to show blank. We're going to match. And what am I matching? I'm looking up this appointment ID, and we're matching in a name range called appointment ID. 0, we want an exact match. But I also want to know the row number. The first one starts on row 4, so I'm going to add 3. If there's an error, I'm going to put blank. Okay, so that way appointment ID 1 is showed on row 4. I also want to know the next appointment ID. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the max formula. Equals if error. And then what I want to do is the max based on the appointment IDs. But I want the next available one, so I'm going to do +1. If there's no data at all, it will create an error. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in 1. Okay, 1's going to be the first one. It's going to default, right? So the next one's 39. If we look inside our appointments and we scroll all the way down, we see the last one is 38. So we know the next one is 39. Perfect. I also want to know the contact name row. That means the row associated with this contact name. So again, we're going to use equals if error. We're going to run match, and we're going to match. What am I matching? I'm looking up this contact name, and I'm basing it on the named range, contact name, which is right here, and I want an exact match. Again, we're going to use the row number, right? I want to know the row number, and we know our first contact name is going to start on row 4, so we're going to add 3 again, so +3. If there's an error, we want to show empty. So that's going to get us, so we know that our Dave Davidson is on row 5. We look in our contacts, and we see Dave David is on row 5. That's exactly what I want. I want to know what row he's associated on. Back into schedule, I want to know the selected contact ID. It is VBA that is going to place that there, so we don't need to put anything there. If I put, let's say, contact ID, if I know Dave is contact ID 2, and I put in a 2 here, I also want to know what row is associated with this contact based on this contact ID. So I want to know that. So again, we can use another match, equals if error. One's based on, we're going to match it. We're going to run a match. And then again, I'm going to look up, this time based on the contact ID. So I'm looking up this contact ID. And we're looking it up based on a name range called contact ID 0. Again, I want to know the row, so we're adding in 3. So plus 3. And then what we're going to do, if there's an error, show empty. So again, select the contact row. This based on, again, this row 5 is based on the contact ID. This row 5 is based on the contact name. I also want to know the next contact ID because we can add new ones. So equals, if error, we're going to match again. Actually, we're using a max formula, just like we did. We're going to match it based on the contact IDs. Again, I want the next one, so we're going to do plus 1. If there's no data at all, we're going to set that default to cont for number 1, just like we did. The next contact ID is 12. If we look inside here, our last one's 11. Our next one is 12. Okay, good. We've just written all the formulas for our hidden range. We're going to save our work. And now we're going to start on the schedule and add that information in here. So we want to know, want to build out the schedule. So how are we going to do that? In this top row, I want to have the days of the week. But if we remember, they're dynamic based on this day here. And we call this start day. So I want to put that day. For sure want to put that day in first, right? So, but I want uppercase letters. So we're going to do equals upper and then start day. Okay, so that's it. So that's the first one I want. And let's go ahead and format those. Obviously, you can't see that very well, so let's format that. And I'm going to center, bold it, make it white, and we'll see where we are from that. Okay, I like that. That looks pretty good there. We can maybe increase the font just a little bit, slightly. Okay, now, but what about the next one? Well, what I want to know is I want to know the next one based on the weekdays, right? So I'm going to use a match formula based on the weekdays. So what I want to know is, if this day is this here, then I want to use this one right here. Otherwise, use one after it. So basically, I'm going to look. If it's found and it's found on the last one, then I'm going to use C9. Otherwise, use wherever it's found. In other words, if it's found Tuesday, use one more. So that's what we're going to do inside that formula. So let's take a look inside here. We're going to use equals upper, and then what I'm going to use if, because I want to know where it's located. We're going to match it, right? So if match, here, let's write it up here so we can see it a little bit better. We're going to match, what am I matching? What's based on G3, right? The previous day. I'm going to look at that up, and I'm going to look it up based on the weekdays. So I'm going to do comma, weekdays, and then that's exactly where I want to do. And I want an exact match, and I want to know if it equals 7. So if it equals 7, right, then I know it's the last. Then what we're going to be doing is showing the first one right here. This one right here. I want to show this one right here. I'm going to use F4 on that, okay? So I want to make sure it's absolute. Okay, so otherwise, we're simply, if it's not, otherwise we're simply going to index. We're indexing the weekdays on here. And I want to find the next one. So I want to basically use the next one in line. So we're matching it. So we got to find the existing one. Again, we're matching what's in G3. And we're going to match it on the weekdays. And I want to return the next day in line. So if we find that, wherever we find that, we're going to add 1 to that, plus 1. And then, of course, column number is going to be 1. We're just using that same weekdays. And then we're going to return the parentheses. So let's take a look at that. So that's Monday, right? Perfect. That's what I want. So if I change that start date to Monday on the schedule, I want to show Tuesday. Now all we need to do is just simply bring this over here to extrapolate all the way through. Perfect. That's exactly what I like. Let's return that back to Sunday, which is where I want to start it, and then we'll look on the schedule. Perfect. So now we're showing basically every day. I like that. That looks good. Okay, let's get to work on our days of the month, right? So I want a formula for showing those days of the month. The first one, basically, we're going to use an if statement because I want to know if this Sunday is the first day of the month, then show the date, right? So let's do that. Equals if here, we're going to use, let's write it up here so we can see it so it's in the right font. If, and then what we're going to do, month start, I want to know the weekday of the month start. So we're looking at that if weekday, and then we're going to do the month start. When we know the month start is here, we have that already inside a named range here, month start. Then what I want to know is if it's 2, right? So 2 is our weekday number, right? So we have that under the weekday. Return type is 2. If we take a look inside the return type, we see that it's 2 because that's the one we're going to be using. Equals, let's get rid of the parentheses there. We have one too many there. Okay, so let's take a look at, so I want to show you that one more time. There we go. This is what I want to show you. We're starting our weekdays on Monday through Sunday. Remember that list of weekdays? So that's why we want 2. That's why I want 2 there. Okay, so next up, what do I want to do? If it's equal to the start date, equal, so we're looking if the first day of the month is equal to that start day, then return it. Then start day number, right? Start day number is 1. That's what we're going to return. Otherwise, show empty. Month start equals start day number. Then show the month start. Month start. I want to know what that month start is, which is basically the first day of the week. Month start, we'll go over that. Just otherwise show empty. Now month start is this right here. Is this one right here. This is our month start, right? This is our named range called month start. So basically we're saying if the first day of the month lands on a Sunday, then show the date. In fact, in this month, in May, it does. So, but I want to format that out. First of all, I don't want to show a date, right? I want to format that accordingly. And so how do I want to format that? I just want to show the days, but I'm going to do it for every single one. So I'm going to hold down the control and return all of the ones right here. So let's bring, oh man, it always goes way over. Bring it over so we can put it, the entire one into view. I'm going to bring this up a little bit. Holding down the control, right? I want to show, one, I want to show it in white font. 2, I only want to show the day, right? I don't want to show anything other than the day. So that's going to be a date. We're returning a date, but it's a format. So we're going to look in there. And then what we're going to do is make sure it's white. We'll put it to bold font. And then what I want to do is I don't want to show general. I want to do more number, and I want to do a custom date format, right? It's a date here, right? But it's going to be something like this. So I'm going to go into custom. Instead of showing, all I want to show is D. I just want to show the day and click OK. And so now it's showing 1. So that's exactly what I want. Maybe a little bit bigger font, but I think it's pretty good. That's pretty much what I want. Now we have everything formatted. So now what we do is we need a different formula for the first row of the subsequent days. And what is that formula? It's a little bit more complex. So we're going to go over it. First of all, I want to know if equals if. And then we're going to look at G. Of course, this is G4. That's what we're focused on. If it does not equal empty, then what are we going to do? Then it's simple. Then we just need to add 1 to that, right? Then all it is G4 plus 1, right? It's simple. It's the next day if it's not empty. However, if it is empty, I want to check to see if the first day of the month, in this case, is on Monday. So how are we going to do that? If we're going to use a weekday again here. And now what I want to do is I want to check, again, I want to check that month start. Month start is the first day of the month that day. 2, we're going to use 2 again. In this case, I want to use equals mod. I want to know the start date. Mod of the start day number. That's auto hotkey. Start day number. I want to know with that. As it's 7, mod of 7. So I want to know the remainder of that. Okay, plus 1, right? Plus 1. Then month start. Then we're just going to return the month start date. So basically we're looking for that day, month start. If it's not, then of course return nothing. Okay, so there we go. Let's update that. Let's get rid of that underscore. We don't need that. Just a comma there, not an underscore. Then plus 1 should be plus 1. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that's ways 2, right? So now, right, I just want to update that. We're going to bring the formula. We're going to make a little bit of a change on each one of them. So instead of this one, the subsequent ones for day 3, we're going to be simply adding 1 to the month number. So it's going to be the start day number plus 1 here. This is going to be plus 1 because we're adding 1 additional date. This one is going to be plus 2. This one's going to be plus 3. We're simply adding a day. We're looking for it, right? I want to know, is Thursday the day or is Friday the day? Plus 4. And the last one's going to be plus 5. We're just simply looking for that. Okay, start day number plus 5. Perfect. That's exactly what I want on the last day. So now we have that. So now everything else is simple. All we need to do is just equals this plus 1 equals whatever this day is plus 1. And then simply here equals this day plus 1. So we can just bring that over here and then just copy and paste that. Okay, good. I like that for that. Now I'm going to copy that, paste it here, and paste it here. Okay, now subsequently we have a little bit different on the line, on the 5th line, on the 5th row, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. On 5th row, what I want to do is I want to do it a little bit differently because I want to make sure that we're still in the same month. If it's February or something, it's going to be a different month here. So I want to make sure that we're only adding dates if it's within a given month. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write formula equals if the month of, let's just say M22 plus 1 here does not equal the month of this date here, in the month of this date. In other words, if it's a different month, then show nothing. Otherwise, it's simply going to be M22 plus 1. So if they're different months, show blank plus 1. Let's take a look at that. Okay, too many arguments. Okay, adding that. We don't need that extra line in here. Okay, perfect. We don't need that right there. Get rid of that. All right, perfect. I like that. So it's a different month. And we're going to do the same thing. I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to change the formulas here. So all we're going to do is just change the cells accordingly. So instead of this cell, it's going to be this cell, and then we can just bring it here. Okay, just bringing it down here. And then the last one here. One more to go, bringing it down here. Okay, I like that there. There we go. That looks good. Now all we need to do is just, again, bring this all the way across here. So we now see that we have formulas, but it's a little bit different. We don't want this value to show. So how can we check it? Well, all we need to do is just simply add an additional equals if the previous one is blank equals blank, then show blank. Now, otherwise we can add in. So we just add an additional here. I like that there. Now bringing that over, and we're just checking on the previous one. Perfect. I'm going to copy this here and bring it down to our last row. Perfect. And now all we need to do again is just update this one here. Just update this one here. I'm just going to check equals if, right, we're checking, I want to know if this is blank, then we're going to show blank. Otherwise, continue on. Perfect. Okay, now we're good. We're good on everything else. Now we got to update that. Equals blank, then show blank. Equals, forgot that. Equals empty. Perfect. Okay, there we go. Like that. Equals empty. Okay, good. Now we're good on that. Okay, so now we've got our schedule looking really good. Let's go ahead and change the month and make sure that everything's working perfect. So April, of course, our first day of April. Quick little error. We've got too many mods in here. Obviously, we only need one of those. Okay, get rid of that. Didn't see that. Okay, continuing on. I like that. That looks good. Just get rid of the other mod. That's auto hotkey that automates that. Sometimes it's usually quite helpful, but not in this case. You guys all saw that. So we just get rid of that extra formula. Then we're good to go on that. We're just checking to make sure that the day, the odd day there, is actually the first day of the month. If it's not, of course, we are going to show blank. Okay, I like that there. Getting rid of the last one. Perfect. Okay, we're good to go on the formulas now. I like that. Yes, of course, April does start on Friday the 1st. And we'll check the next month, right? We're going to use navigation, right? And the June, of course, June does start on Wednesday the 1st. Okay, good. We're set up with the schedule now. We've got a really good functioning schedule. And now what we can do is we can start adding in our buttons. We've added in all the formulas. We have a really nice schedule here. So it looks really good. And we're ready to get set up with some buttons. So let's add in those right now. We're going to do insert. Right, I want to add in, first I want to add in some buttons for our scheduler. So I'll add in some shapes. I'm going to use this navigation because I want to create some previous month and this month. So let's go ahead and add that in here. And I'm going to zoom in and so we can get exactly the right. We're going to use this button for our next month, but I want to keep it, keep the button small. So we're just going to go something like that. Bring it down here enough just to write in next month. And then also, again, just like we did before, I don't want any format that because I don't want any spaces around there, right? So I want to keep that very minimum. So we're going to go to the text options, format that, basically removing most of the margins, and then we're going to center that so that we can that way we have minimum number of space. Okay, so next month, and then what we'll do is we will add in this and this, and then just make it a little bit bigger, enough to increase the text, and that's all we need. All right, changing the look of that. Of course, I want to create that same look. So using the same shape fill that we did, we're using consistent throughout, which is going to be this color here. That is our color. I like that there. Let's zoom out to make sure we have a good size. Going back to 100% here. That looks good. So I like the way that looks. That looks next month. I think we've got a border around there, which we don't need. So we don't need a shape outline. Let's go to no outline. No need for that. All right, that looks good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that using Control D, and I'm going to reverse it. So I'm going to use the shape format here. And then what I want to do is rotate that, and I'm going to flip it horizontal. Now we flipped it, and we're going to change this to previous month. So I'm going to move it over here, and then we'll just change it to previous month. So PREV, and then get rid of the next. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then we'll increase the size of that. Oh, actually, we can just change the dot on that. I think we're good on the size. That should be fine. That looks pretty good. We've got buttons. And I also want a button for this month too. So let's move this over because I want to have one for this month. What I want to do is I want to check the height on this one. So in the format, that height is 0.25. I want to create a brand new button, the same height. So we're going to insert, illustration, shapes, right? Just a square button. And I'm going to do the same thing when I'm going to add that shape. I want to make sure that that height is 0.25, the same as with the rest. And we're going to call it this month. So we're going to give it a name, give it that same color. Let's bring down this so we don't have to keep popping it out again. And then we'll give it a shape fill. We'll call it this month. And also we're going to do the same thing with the formatting, right? I want to make sure that I want to center that. So I'm going to format that here. And then what I want to do is I also want to make sure the text options here, and we're going to get rid of the margins here. So 0, 0, 0, 0, centering that. So we're going to go into home, centering that both ways, and then we're going to reduce it. All right, I want to reduce those. Let's do 0.8 and see if we can do that. That'll work just fine. Okay, bringing that up here, we're going to tie that to a macro here, and then we'll give it some separation so that we have that, and that, holding down the control, making sure they're lined up vertically. And then we're going to separate them horizontally, distribute them horizontally. Okay, I like that. We've got some nice buttons there. That looks good. I want to create one more for the refresh, and we're going to add an icon onto that. So I'm going to do Control D, duplicating that button. I don't move over here because I want to be able to refresh it. I want to put it right here at the end of our scheduler here. And then we'll just call this refresh. So that'll be sufficient. Refresh. I'm going to right justify that so I can have room for an icon here. Okay, that looks good. But in this case, we do want a little bit of a spacer on that. So again, we're going to add in the formats here, and we're going to update that again. I do want a little bit of a spacer on that. So formatting those and then just putting in the text option, text box, and then the right margin, maybe 0.03. That looks good. I like that. Let's take a look at that. That's exactly what I want. Oops, let's update that. 0.03. Right margin, I'll do 0.05. Perfect. Now we'll add in the icons in just a moment, but I've got additional buttons to add in. So I'm going to duplicate that using Control D. And I'm going to drag it over here, and I want to create some buttons for our thing. But this is going to be too big for a button. We've got limited space. So I'm going to change this to 0.2. Okay, so I want very small buttons there, probably even less. So let's do 0.18 because we have limited space. And then we can also, let's see, the first one I want to do is I want to do new appointment. So we want to bring a new appointment. And I'll bring this out probably to 1. And then I also, it's too much, 0.9. I also want to do one for a save appointment. So we're going to duplicate that, Control D. And then what I want to do is we'll call this save appointment. And then I want to delete. So we'll just use a delete. And then I'm going to do Control D and then delete. So delete. All right. So we could probably just keep this, just delete itself. That's sufficient enough for us. And then I also want save room for icons too. So there we go. Okay, I like that. That looks pretty good here. Delete doesn't need to be that big, so we can reduce that to 0.7. Okay, we'll add in the icons there, and then we'll bring it over. So I'm going to move this over here. Saving appointment here. Going to bring it over here. And then moving delete all the way to the end. We have enough space for all three, which is fine. Holding down the control, lining them up horizontally, distributing them horizontally. Now what we're going to do is we're going to bring in our icons. So let's go ahead and insert illustrations, and I want to insert a pictures. Okay, so from this device, and I've got a folder set up. I've got add, confirm, recycle, and refresh. Those are the ones I want. I'm going to insert those, and they're going to be way too big, of course. Here they are right there. They're way too big, so I'm going to change them to about 0.16. Right, we want them small. I'm going to zoom in here. I'm going to drag them all over close to our buttons here. Now refresh, of course, that's going to go directly. Let's put delete right over here. Refresh is going to come right over here, so I want to put in refresh right here. I'm going to hold down the control there, I'll line it up horizontally, and I'm going to group that into a button. And I'll delete, I'm going to do the same thing horizontally here, grouping that itself. And then what we'll do is we're going to add in the add new. This is the new one here, bringing that down here. And then also we have our save. So that one's right up here. Here, I'm putting that here, zooming in, right, so we can see what we're doing here. And then new appointment, again, I'm going to bring this down here. Then all we need to do is just do the same thing, but up duplicate it for context. So again, horizontally, group it, clicking horizontally and grouping it here. Okay, I like that there. I think we've got some borders around here that I don't really want here. Notice we have some borders around here. So I'm going to shape format and then no outline here. Same thing here, no outline here. Same thing here. I don't want any outline on that. And then just clicking here. Okay, good. So we've got rid of those outlines, which we don't need. We've got everything here. So to do that, I'm just going to also align it up and group it here. Okay, next up, what I want to do is we've got this grouped. I've got this grouped here. Let's line that up, make sure it's grouped. I want to group it. There we go. Now it's grouped. Okay, so this is grouped. This is checking on this. This is still not grouped. Grouping it. This one's grouped. Okay, good. I like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the control. Everything's spaced out, making sure they're lined up. I'm going to duplicate all three of those. Duplicate it. And these are going to be ones for our contact, right? So I'm going to bring those down here. And these are going to be ones for our contact. So here, all we need to do is just click new, change this to CON. Okay, that's going to be for our contact. Again, saving this to CON and then delete is fine. So we're going to use those for delete contact, save contact. Now we got everything. Now I really don't want to, I want to make sure that we're moving but not sizing these in case we need to move them. So I'm going to use my selection tool on every single shape that we have. I'm going to right click on that and then I'm going to format those objects. And I'm going to make sure that inside the properties here, right, text shape options inside the properties here, I want to make sure, here we go, that I am there move but don't size with cells. Okay, there we go. So now we're setting up. So now if we have to move them, we don't not sizing them. Okay, that looks pretty good. I've got our everything really set up. We've got our buttons set up. We're just about ready to start doing some coding. Very cool. There's one additional button that we do need, and that's going to be for adding a picture, right? We want to be able to add a picture. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this one right here. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it down here. And then I'm just going to get rid of the text. I don't need the text on this. It's kind of self-explanatory. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this the width about, let's say, 0.22. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to center this here inside there. So centering everything there. And I'm going to bring this down. This is going to be our browse button right here. So I'm going to be able to add a picture. I want to add a picture right there. So that's good. Making sure that that's grouped. Okay, good. So we want to be able to add a picture and then we're going to be able to use that button to browse for that picture. Everything is now complete. We have now added formulas in here. We've added the buttons here. Now all we need to do is program this thing up and make it go live. Okay, cool. Let's get on to that. The first thing what I want to do is I want to make sure that when I make a change to a contact here, I want all that contact information to load up here. And now we know when we change it, this contact name, notice that we have a row already situated. When we make a change here, we know that that contact name row is going to change based on 7. So Mary Smith, inside our contacts, row 7, we want everything to load up. Now, we've done it very well so that we have actually, notice that the order, name, type, phone, email, address, city, state, zip, picture, right? It is exactly the same order that we have right here. Name, type, phone. So it's very, very easy to automatically load that information as long as we have the correct row number here. So that's what we're going to do when we make a change. And we're gonna have some macros called contact load so that we can load that in. Okay, saving our work. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go into the developer. Using the developer here, this tab here, if you don't have that tab, all you need to do is go into the options here and go into the customize ribbon here and just make sure that you have the developers selected there. You can also use the shortcut Alt F11 to get in there. Okay, inside here we have several different options. We've got some modules here. I've got some application macros. I've got appointment macros. We've got contact macros and we have schedule macros. So each one of those modules, and I've done just a little bit of adding in some dimension variables here to help us move along. So the first thing what I want to do is contact, what I want to load that contact. So there's a macro called load contact. When do I want this to happen? As soon as a user makes a change to E3, I want something to happen. So what is it that I actually want to happen? Well, I want to load that contact, but I want to make sure that B11 contains a number. If it doesn't, I want to let the user know to make sure they select on a correct contact name. So that's the first code that we're going to write. So we're going to focus on that schedule with schedule. That is the name of the sheet, the code name, schedule. If you want to make sure you have the name right, use a dot here. If IntelliSense comes up, you know you've got the name right. So first of all, I want to check if .range B11.value equals empty. Then we know we don't have a correct contact. So let the user know. Message box, please select a correct contact from the drop-down list. And we're going to exit the sub. We cannot move on. Exit sub. Now we've dimensioned just two variables up above. We see contact row and contact column. Oh, we also have schedule row here in case we need that. So contact row, we're going to need that. So contact row is automatically going to be what is in B11. That is the row of the associated contact. So we can do that. Contact row is equal to B11. Contact row. Once we know the contact row, we can then load everything in. Now, except if we notice the contact ID is not part of it. So what I mean is the contact ID is not inside this information right here. Let's pull up the screen right here. Contact ID is not here. Contact ID is located in B12. So let's add that in first. And that means all we need to do is from column A, whatever that ID is associated in that row, and place it directly inside B12. So we're going to do that inside the code. .range B12 is equal to contacts, that's our contact sheet, make sure range, column A, and the contact row dot value. That's the contact ID. Okay, great. So that's going to place it directly in there. Now what we can do is we can use a loop right? Because what I want to do is I want to loop. It's very, very simple because I'm going to loop through all the contact columns and bring them in here. Where are we going to start out? We're going to start out in column 2. Where are we going to go? We're going to go to equals. We're going to go all the way to column 11. Column 11, from 2 to 11. We're going to load in all this information, and I'm going to load it directly inside all these fields. So how do we do that? We can use a loop. For contact column equals 2 to 11. Make sure we close our loop right away. Let's get to the ones. Next contact column. So inside there, what do we want to do? Dot range. Where do we want to place them? Column E. What row do we want to place it? Right? Where do I want to place that information? If we take a look inside here, E, right? We're going to start out at 12. If I know the name's going to go in E12, and I know the name is coming from column 2, all I need to do is convert the column 2, to the row 12. So I can do that by adding 10. So let's do that, write that inside the code. E and the contact column plus 10 dot value equals contacts dot cells contact row contact column dot value. So that's simply going to add in contact details. Okay, that's it. End with and end sub. So great. So now what do we want to do? Remember, when do we want this to happen? Let's go ahead and copy this. We want that to happen as soon as the user makes a change on E3, and we want to make sure that E3 isn't blank. So we can write that up inside the worksheet change event. So if we click on schedule here, we can see that we have a private, if we want to change, it's the change event here, worksheet change. So first of all, if target dot range, let's do count large is greater than 1, then exit the sub. And that helps prevent errors if the user makes a change to more than one cell at a time. Okay, so if not, so if the user makes a change to what cell? E3. Remember, E3. If they make a change to E3 and what? There was another condition, and E3 does not equal empty, and range E3 dot value does not equal empty, then do something. Then what? Run the macro contact load. Then load contact details. Let's give it a try and see how that works. So as soon as I make a change, I can double click on Mary. Everything loads up just the way I like it. Contact ID is located here. So if I change the contact here to Mark here, looks good. Everything looks good. That's working great. So now we've loaded in the contact automatically on change. Perfect. Just the way I like it. All right. What next? So now that we've loaded in the contact, I want to be able to save the employment information. Well, why don't we continue with our contacts? We want to save. If I make a change to the contact, or if I make a change, I want to make sure that those changes are saved. Test notes. So now update. So if I want to make a change, I want to save that contact, or maybe I want to add a new one or a new contact. Well, what I want to do is both new contact and save a contact and delete. So let's write the macros for that. Okay, so we're going to go back into our contact macros. We've loaded it up. Let's just start in order. So first thing I want to do is be able to browse for a picture. Now, if I browse for that contact picture, I want to make sure that I place that picture inside the appropriate folder. I want to make sure that the contact picture goes directly inside here. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to use a macro to browse for it. So I want the name of that picture, to be placed directly in here. So let's go ahead and write that macro right now. Okay, so the first thing what I want to do is I want to add in, I want to dimension the picture folder as a string. So we're going to do dimension the contact pic as a file dialog. Let's do file as file dialog. Okay, and also want to know dimension the picture folder as a string. Picture folder as a string. I want to make sure also that the user has added, right? We want one single folder with all the pictures from the admin. I want to make sure that that's correct. So we want to, let's put it in a check here, a comment here, check for accurate contact picture folder. And then we're going to look inside the admin. We have a named range for that. If we take a look inside the admin settings, let's bring that up here. And we see we have a name range called contact pic folder. That's the one I want to check. So I'm going to copy that. And we're going to go down in here. And then we're going to say if admin.range, pasting in that dot value equals empty, then let the user know. Message box, please set a folder for contact pictures. And then we're going to exit the sub, right? Or actually, instead of exiting the sub, let's prompt the user to browse for it. Now I have that macro already called browse for contact picture. I have that already because it was easier to add that browse. So that's just simply going to browse for the folder and place that folder directly in E5. So I'm going to prompt the users to do that. So inside the contact macro, instead of exiting the sub, I'm going to do that. Now what I'm going to do is after they've done it, I'm going to check again to make sure it is accurate or we're going to exit. So we're going to do that. If, one more time, if admin equals empty, then we're going to exit the sub. We can do this or. We can do actually or to check for or, right? We can check for directory of the admin. Let's paste that in here. Admin, if the directory empty, VB, let's get rid of this. We don't need this. We're looking for this. I want to check to see if VB directory, right here, VB directory, let's get rid of this, is empty, then we know that it's an incorrect file path. Equals empty, then exit the sub, right? We're still exiting. Basically, I want to exit if there's any issue with that folder path. Moving on, we know that the folder path is correct. So now what we want to do is we want to add that into a string variable. So the picture folder is equal to what? Right here, simply our admin ping. So there we go. So now we're going to put that into a string variable. Okay, so that is our picture contact picture folder, contact picture folder. Good. So we've got the contact picture folder set up into a string variable. And now what I want to do is I want to set the file dialog, right? I want the user, because I want to be able to browse for a picture and put it in directly in the folder. So we're going to set the contact picture is equal to the application dot file dialog. That's the one. We're going to use a file picture on that. So MSO file picker. We want to pick file. We're going to focus on that. So with contact pick. Okay. So what do we want to do? The first thing what I want to do is add a title in there. So what is going to be the title? It's going to be equal to please select a contact picture. That's the title that's going to come up. Next up, I want to add some filters, right? Because I don't want every type of file. We're only focused on picture related files. So the filters.add, we're adding in specific picture files, And what type of files are those? Well, this could be different types of files. So we're going to do in JPG, right, or .jpg, anything before .jpg. Okay, next up, I also want to add in maybe PNG, so we'll do *.png. Then next up, I want to do maybe GIF, so we'll do a comma, and then we'll do another asterisk, and then we'll do another asterisk, and then .gif, and then maybe we'll add in JPEG, so asterisk again, and then .jpeg. And then let's take a look. That's maybe GIFs, and that's going to be it. And then another comma, and then asterisk, and then we'll do GIFs. Okay. .gif. Okay, that's going to cover most of them, and that should be fine. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do the position is equals 1. Next up, what I want to do is I want to allow multi-select, which is going to be false, right? We only want them to do one picture at a time, so we're going to set that to false. And then what I want to know is if they've made an incorrect selection or they've canceled, we need to exit out. So if .selected items 1, right? All right, we can do .show. Let's do if .show does not equal -1, that means they haven't selected anything, and then go to no selection. And then we're going to put in no selection down here, no selection with a colon. All right, so that means if they haven't selected anything, we're going to skip all that. So now what I want to do is I want to check if .selected items, right? That's going to be the full file path equals pick folder. Actually, I want to add something onto that pick folder. I want to add in, so right here, I want to add in a backslash onto that. So, and it's going to help us out, backslash here. Let's go ahead and add that in. All right, so there we go. Now we've got that. So now what I'm going to do is I want to check to see if the file is already in the current folder. We don't need to move it anywhere if it's already there. So we're going to check if the path of where we're browsing from is equal to the picture folder and the name of the file. What's the name of the file? It's directory of the .selected items. So that is going to get us our, basically we're just going to run a check, then go to skip copy, right? We don't need to copy it over if we're already browsing it in there. So let's update that and directory of selected items, one more parentheses on the end of that. All right, then skip the copy because we want to copy the picture into the new folder that the user set. But if that picture is already there, we don't need to copy it. So we're going to do skip copy down here, right? And then here's where we're going to be able to copy it in. But I don't want to copy it into the folder if there's already something there, okay? So we just want to make sure. So I want to make sure that that the picture's not already there in case it is. If there's already a name with that picture there, it's going to create an issue. We can't overwrite that. So I'm going to check that. If picture folder. Let's set up picture folder here. Let's do this. We can just copy this right here. We've already written that. What I want to do is I want to check now to see if it's in the existing folder. So we can do that with this. .vb directory does not equal empty, then kill, right? Basically, we're just deleting it if it already exists in there. So that's all we have to do, just to make sure that we're deleting it if it already exists. Okay, so if it hasn't, now all we need to do is copy the picture from its current location into the new location. So how are we going to do that? So we're going to do file copy. And what is its current location? Its current location is .selected items. Selected item, that's its current location. And where's the new location? The new location is right here, picture folder and the directory of selected items. So that's it. We're simply going to copy the picture to its new location. Copy to new location. Very good. So now we skip the copy. And now what we want to do is simply update E21. So I want to take the name of that file, the name of that picture, and I want to place it directly inside here, right inside here, E21, placing that in there. So how are we going to do that? So that's relatively easy, right? So we haven't set a specific width sheet, so we're going to call out the schedule in this one. Schedule, dot range, E21, dot value is equal to the directory of the selected item. So dot selected items, one directory meaning just the file name, place file name. Okay, and that's it. That's all we need to do, and end with this for our particular file picture dialog. So we're going to end with, and then we're going to exit the sub, end sub. Okay, we'll take a look at that. If there's any errors, we'll run that. I'm going to save our work, and I want to tie this particular macro to that button that we've associated with that. So I'm going to copy this here. And then I'm going to go into our schedule right here, and I'm just going to right click on this, assign the macro. Sorry, it's off the screen. And then we're going to paste in that and click OK. Now what I'm going to do is browse for that. All right, let's take a quick look in the code. I need to update one more thing, this end if, right? If there's an issue with that, we need to go all the way up here. I want to add it in right up here after this end sub. There we go. Okay, so this is one. Only if there's an issue with that. I'm going to get rid of that. Perfect. So if there's an issue with the folder, perfect. Okay, let's go ahead and continue it now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to browse for that folder, picture folder. We can add anything. Oh, speaking of 250 box, we've got 250 my best templates. All right, perfect. So now we take a look. That name of the file's here. And we also have to look in our folder to make sure that that file has been copied over here. Perfect. Okay, let's go ahead and browse for a person here, and then we'll just choose Mark here, who is correct here. Click OK, and that's what we want Mark's. All right, perfect. That's just the way we can remove this from the folder now. We don't need that. All right, good. So everything's good. We're browsing. Now let's go ahead and continue with our contact markers, both for new, save, and delete. We're going to add those in right now. Very, very easy. First one is the save contact. I want to save a contact. So what we want to do is we want to either save an existing contact or add a new contact with the same macro. So we're going to focus on the schedule. So with, again, schedule. And what are we going to do? Well, the first thing what I want to do is I want to know if we are working with an existing contact or if we are working with a new contact, right? If I know that if we don't have a contact ID here, we're going to clear that out on a new contact. I know that there's no B13 is going to be empty for new contacts. So we're going to use B13 to determine whether we have a new contact or whether we have an existing contact. Okay, so let's just take a look at that. So if .range B13 .value equals empty, then new contact, else existing contact, and then end if. So what I want to do is I want to have a contact row. So we've dimensioned contact row up here as a long. So we're going to set the contact row. Now the contact row, if it's a new one, is going to be the first available row. So the contact row is equal to, we're going to focus on our contact screen, and then it needs XLR first available row. So it's going to be the first available row inside column A. That is going to be our contact row. So once we know our contact row, I want to set the next contact ID to based on B12. We know the next contact ID because that's located right here. So I want to take that next contact ID and I'll place it in directly into B12. So B12 is going to equal B14 only for new contacts. So .range B12 is equal to B14 equal to .range B14. That's going to set that new contact ID. New contact ID. I also want to set that new contact ID directly inside column A of our contacts. So we're going to do contacts A and the contact row dot value is equal to whatever's in B12 because we've already placed it B12. Okay, so that's going to set the new contact ID. All right, new contact ID again. Okay, so once we have that, all we need to do is then set the contact row for the existing. If it's an existing, we know the contact row is already located in B13. So we can just set it here. Contact row is equal to B13, existing contact row. Okay, so once we have that, now what we do is need to run a loop, just like we did before, but this time we're actually saving it. So we're gonna do for contact column equals 2 to 11, next contact column, right? But in this case, just as we did in the contact load, right? Just as we did here, we're going to reverse it. Right? So we're going to copy this and then we're going to paste it up here, but we're going to reverse it. Instead of saving information, instead of actually putting information inside the scheduling, we're going to put it inside the actual contact. So we're going to reverse it. So the contact information inside the contact database is going to equal whatever is in E in the contact column. So we're going to add, save, or update contact details here. That's all we have to do. Then all we want to do is just simply add a message box. Let's not add the G in there. That's not going to be helpful for anybody. Okay, message box. We can use message box in this case. This training is going to be long enough as opposed to a fade out message. Contact saved. Okay, so that's enough. All right, so very good. So if we want to save or update the contact, I'm going to click save on this just so we have. And again, it is this macro that we're going to tie to our button here inside right here. So save contact, this, I'm going to right click, add the macro here, paste that in, click OK. Okay, so test notes updated. Okay, that's going to be from Mark. So make sure that we're saving that contact here, contact save. If I load in another contact here, Mary, and I load back in Mark, I want to make sure that those test notes updated got saved. Okay, looking good. Everything got saved. Our updates got saved. Let's add in a new contact. Relatively simple. All I need to do is just clear out all the existing fields and make sure to clear out that contact ID located in B12. So let's add that in here inside in contact new. So we're going to do this schedule dot range E, right? I want to make sure that that E13 that gets cleared out. E3 also, I want to make sure to clear out whatever contacts here. I want to clear out whatever's located in B12 and then everything else. So E3, we want to call E3 along with B12, along with everything from E12 all the way through E21. That all gets cleared out. Okay, dot clear contact. That's relatively easy. Again, just simply copy this, going back in, going and assigning the macro to that button that we created. Assign the macro, pasting that in, clicking OK. All right, let's click on new contact. Everything gets cleared out just the way we like it. Perfect, perfect. That's exactly the way we like it. Now we want to load in the contract, just perfect. Okay, last thing is delete contact. Let's go ahead and write that so we can delete a specific contact. And we're going to go all the way down here inside the macro and delete that contact. So first of all, if we're deleting a contact, I do need to know whether the contact has been saved or not. If it hasn't been saved, if we click on new contact and we had Fredders, right? And we haven't saved the contact, there's no row associated with that contact. All I need to do is just run the add new and it'll clear everything else out. So that's what we're going to first check. Okay, so we want to make sure that we're going to do that. So I'm going to check to see, I want to know if there is a specific row that's associated, it means previously saved, and that's going to tell us B13 is going to let us know. So with schedule. Before I do that, I want to make sure that the user does want to delete it. I want to add a confirmation, so we'll add a message box delete. And it's going to say, are you sure you want to delete this? Not appointment, that's just auto hotkey. Contact, delete, and then update this to contact. That way if they say no, they can exit out and just give them out. Okay, so assuming that they do, what I do want to check, I want to know if that we have an existing contact. So that's going to tell us B13 is going to let us know if it's been previously saved. If .range B13.value equals empty, then what we're going to do is we don't need to skip the database delete because there is no database. Then go to, let's just call not saved, right? So we're going to just skip that, not saved. And then this is the part where we delete. So the contact row is equal to whatever's in B13. So we're going to copy this and then say equal B13. That's the associated contact row. So now we can delete it. So contacts.range, contact row, and the contact row, entire row dot delete. Okay, so we're deleting that. So once it's been deleted, all we need to do is run the macro to do contact new, right? All I need to do to clear everything out is just run this macro contact new. And that's going to be after non-save. Okay, run macro to clear context. All right, good. I like that. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to just copy this and we're going to add that to the button, assign that to the button that we've already created. Okay, perfect. Right click and then assign the macro here, paste that in, click OK. All right, so we're going to add in that contact test here, phone test. Okay, doesn't matter. Save the contact save, look at our contacts. It's here, Fred Fedder's test, okay? But now what we're going to do is we're going to delete that contact, going back into the schedule, deleting that contact row equals, we need to put the equals in there, equals, okay, continuing on, and then making sure we get the count. Are you sure you want to delete it? Yes. Okay, taking a look. It's been now cleared out, making sure that's cleared out on the schedule, making sure that it's cleared out in the database. Perfect. Okay, good. That's just the way I want. Now deleting. So we've got everything with our contacts, new contact, saving contact, deleting it, browsing for the photo, and loading the contact. Perfect. So we're done with our contact macros. Completed. Good job. And we're going to focus on our appointment macros. I want to add very similar new appointment, save an appointment, load an appointment, and delete an appointment. All right, so how do we do that? Well, the first thing what we want to do is, again, I want to save or update an appointment here. So inside that, the first thing what we're going to do is just focus on the new appointment, which is just clearing out the associated fields with any appointment. So let's do that right now. So let's bring this down a little bit so we can see our appointments here and bring it up. So we're going to focus on the schedule.range, and then I want to clear out associated fields. E3, right? I want to clear out all the associated fields. 3, we're going to focus on B8. B8 is our selected appointment ID. I want to clear that out. I also want to do B12, which is our selected employee ID. And then E5 through E9, E5 through E9, right? All the associated appointment and also all the associated contact. So E12 through E21 All those contact fields also must get cleared out. .clear contents. Clear out all fields. And then what I want to do is I just want to select E3. That's going to schedule.range E3. That way the user can automatically put in a selected contact. Select it. Make sure you have already automatically selected. Make sure if you run this macro because we're selecting a specific cell and the current screen is not the schedule, it will provide an error. So I'm going to just the macro that we just created, assign that macro here, pasting in that macro, click OK. Now, new appointment here clears everything out. Okay, good. Now let's go ahead and run the macro to save an appointment. I want to make sure that we add an appointment date and also we have a selected contact. Those are going to be required. So those are going to make sure. All right, so let's go ahead and save that and run the macro that's going to save that. Very, very easy. So save and update. First up, I want to make sure that we have an associated employee ID, B13, right? If there's no contact row that's associated, right, inside there, I want to make sure that we do. So B13 must have a value. And also E5, I want to make sure that there's an appointment date. So if either one of those are blank, we let the user know we can't save it. So with schedule, if.range, I'm going to focus on E5, right? That will be the appointment date. Equals empty, or .range B13, which is the employee selected contact row. I want to make sure it's equal to empty, equals empty, then let the user know. We can use empty or double quotes, either one is fine. Then message box, please make sure to add in a contact and a, let's call it appointment date, exit sub. Can't do that without those two items. Okay, assuming that we have those two items, we can then determine whether it is a new appointment or an existing appointment. How do we know? We have an appointment ID right here. If that appointment ID is available, we know that there's an appointment row. So B9 is going to tell us if it is an existing or not. So I need to determine that based on what is located in B9. All right, so let's write that up. If .range B9.value equals empty, then it's a new appointment. Else, existing appointment, and if. Okay, so we have that. So if it's a new appointment, of course, just like we did before, we need to assign a row, right? Appointment row, appointment column is long. So we're going to assign appointment row. Just as we did, appointment row equals, where's it going to be equal? It's going to be based on, of course, our appointments. That's our database appointments. And we're going to use the first available range, so +1, okay? That first available space using end XLF, first available row. Once we know that row, we can also then set that appointment ID. Where's that appointment ID coming from? That appointment ID, that next available appointment ID, I want to take this next, I want to put it directly inside B8. I also want to take it directly and put it in column A here. So we're going to do those two things in the next 2 lines of code. So dot range B8 equals B10. So B8 dot value equals dot range B10. Very good. So now we're going to set appointment ID. We're going to do the same thing. So again, with the appointments in column A, I want to do exactly the same thing, setting that appointment ID, just as we did for the context. And the appointment row dot value equals dot range B8, setting that appointment ID also. Set appointment ID. So once we have that, also we can simply add a few more details and then we can run a loop. So inside, what else do we want to do? Inside appointments, I want to take that contact ID. We can freeze those columns, right? That's going to help. So view, and I want to freeze those panes. So we'll go into freeze panes in top row. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to put the contact ID in B and I want to put the contact in C. So let's write that up now. So appointments dot range B and the appointment row dot value is equal to the contact ID. Where's that contact ID located? It's located directly inside B12. So we're going to add it in there. Equals dot range B12. Set contact ID. Next up, I want to set that contact name. That contact name is going to go directly in column C, and it's going to come directly from E3 or E3. So we're going to put that in C, and it's going to come directly in E12. We can use E12. Contact names also located here. Either one is fine. Okay, so E12, perfect. Okay, so we have B12 and E12 there. All right, next up, what we want to do is we want to run a loop. Now, if we take a look, I want to add in the appointment date, the time, duration, status, right? We can add that in. The status, I want to add a status, and I want to put in some notes, okay? So once we have all that, I want to add it into the database, right? But if we take a look in the order, it is exactly the same order that we have it. Date, time, duration, status, and notes. So we can run the column from column 4 here to column 8. We can use a loop. We can use appointment column to do that. And of course, this is going to be for any type of columns, for all types. But we also need to set the row. The appointment row is simply equal to B9, right? If it's an existing, appointment equal to dot range B9. Okay, dot value. Very good. So I like that. Let's place this down here. I want to put that in case we change the contact for both new or an existing, right? So new or an existing, we are going to add in that contact ID in the contact. Then we're going to run a loop. So that's going to be regardless. So here's our loop. For contact column equals 4 to 8. Next contact column. So once we're inside that contact, we're going to focus on appointments dot cells. What is it? The appointment row, comma, appointment column dot value is equal to what? We're going to put it in dot range. E, it's coming from E and what? Now we take a look. We know that this is going to be column 4. Where is it coming from? It's coming directly from row 5. So row 5, row 6, row 7. So all we need to do is add 1 to the row. So let's go ahead and put that in there. So E and, right, the contact column plus 1 dot value. So add in appointment details. Very good. And then I want to run a macro. So that's all we need to do. That's going to automatically save or update all the appointment information into the database. And I want to run a macro automatically to refresh the schedule. I'm going to have a macro called schedule refresh. So that means when we add an appointment, I want to refresh that schedule. I'm going to put that in right now to make it a little bit easier. So every time we save it, we are going to then refresh the schedule. So just like that. And I also want to let the user know that the appointment has been saved. Message box appointment has been saved. Very good. So we know the appointment's been saved. We're refreshing the schedule and with very good. Now, of course, refreshing the schedule won't do anything because we haven't written that macro yet, but it won't create an issue. Okay, so let's go ahead and try it. So we have, this is not an existing, so I'm going to click assign the macro to the button that we previously created, and then clicking assign the macro and just looking for appointment, save and update. That's the one we want. So we're going to click that button here, and then we're going to see, watch go, contact column, variable, not, it should be appointment column, right? Appointment column, you guys saw that. Appointment column here, not contact. All right, that looks good. Continuing on here. And then next appointment column here. Debug that, find that appointment row here. Now the appointment row is 42. We know we got to set that up. Obviously not value. Got to fix that. Too many. There we go. There we go. Okay, that looks good. All right, continuing on, and then perfect. Okay, appointment has been saved. Clicking down to the appointments, making sure inside our appointment database that everything's been saved in the proper order. Of course, we have our ID, our contact ID, our name, our date, our duration, appointment notes. Perfect. Everything's been saved exactly the way we want it. Very good. So we have save appointment, we have new appointment, and now we want to be able to delete an appointment. That's the last macro that we have. Oh, we need to load appointment. So let's go ahead and load the appointment in. Now, when I select an appointment on the schedule, I want that information to load in. Now, to do that, all I need to do is make sure that I have the correct appointment ID here. Once I have the correct appointment ID here, I can load it all in. So let's write a macro to do just that. So inside the appointment load, we're going to focus on with schedule. And then what we want to do is I want to make sure that we want to check to see if B9 is empty, right? If there is no row associated with that appointment, I can't load it in. I need to make sure that B9 contains a value. If .range B9.value equals empty, then let the user know, message box, please select a correct appointment. Exit sub, right? Nothing we can do unless we have a row associated with an appointment, right? Continuing on, now what we want to do is I want to set that into a variable. Appointment row is equal to whatever's in B9. So now we've got a row associated with that. And we'll do just pretty much the opposite of what we did when we saved it, right? So all we need to do is set that appointment row. The first thing what I want to do is I know that if I add that name, if I take that contact name and I put it directly inside here, inside our E3, I know it's going to load all the contact information. So let's go ahead and do that first. Okay, so .range E3 is equal to whatever's in appointments, .range C and the appointment row, .value. This is going to add in contact name. It's going to automatically load in all the contact name details. Okay, next up, what I want to do is I want to run a macro. Our ID is already in there, right? Our appointment ID is going to be already in there. Our contact ID is going to load in automatically as soon as we load the contact. Now all we need to do is run a loop from 4 to 8 and load in all the information, just as we did before. So all we need to do is just simply take that same loop and reverse it. We already wrote the loop. So what I'm going to do, especially since I got it wrong, copy that, right? Paste that in here, but now what we're doing is we're going to reverse it. Again, bringing this over here and bringing this inside the equals. So basically, everything in E equals whatever's in the appointment row and the appointment associated column. Add in the appointment details. Okay, great. That's all we need to do. It's very, very simple to add it in. So I'm going to copy this. So when we have the schedule, all we need to do is select an appointment, make sure the appointment ID is loaded in, and it's automatically going to work. Okay, so let's take a look at that. We'll just pick any 11, and we'll do it manually right now just to make sure that it's working. So I'm going to put that in here, and then I'm going to run the macro. Now this macro, I'm just going to run this macro. I'm going to make sure that the appointment ID loaded. Larry Daniels, everything loaded from that. Perfect. Okay, good. So now all we need to do is delete an existing appointment. So let's go ahead and write that macro. That's the last macro for appointments. And then all we need to do is add in the scheduling macros. So again, with the appointments, just like we did with the contacts, we're going to make sure that they actually want to delete it. So we're going to do message box delete. I want to make sure there's a message. Are you sure you want to delete the appointment? Yes, no, delete. Or well, that worked out. No need to make changes. Okay, assuming that they do, with the schedule, we're going to focus on, again, I want to determine has this appointment been saved or not? How do we know that it's been saved? Well, B9 is going to tell us, right? B9 is that row that's associated. So if B9 is empty, all I need to do is just click new appointment. So if .range B9.value equals empty, then go to, let's just call it not saved, right? So it's not been saved yet, so we can skip that, not saved. So now if it has been saved, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set that appointment row is equal to whatever's in B9. Then I'm simply going to delete it. So that's the appointment row. So appointments dot range appointment row and we're going to do that parentheses colon and then parentheses and appointment row dot entire row dot delete. Okay, we're deleting that. Very good. So we've deleted that appointment row just to make sure. And then also all we need to do is just clear out new. So all I need to do is just copy this appointment new right here and place this directly down, and that's going to automatically clear everything out right here. Good, we're good to go. That's it. That's all we need. We'll create an appointment. We'll test it out to make sure, saving our work here. And then what we'll do is we'll assign that macro that we just created to the delete. So assign that macro, appointment delete, click OK here, and we'll add a new appointment here, and we'll just add appointment. We'll add any person here. And then we'll add appointment date. We don't need to add the rest, okay? We're going to save that appointment. Appointment's been saved. And now we're going to delete that appointment. Are you sure you want to delete it? Yes. Okay, appointment's been deleted. Go to appointments. Make sure that the last one got deleted, which it did. Perfect. Good. So we've got everything working. We've got new appointment, save appointment, delete. We've got contacts deleting. Now all we need to do is generate all the appointments that we've created inside the schedule. And to do that, we're going to use some shapes, right? What I want is some shapes. So I'm going to use insert some specific shapes. So I'm going to insert a shape because I need a sample shape. Is that sample shape that's going to help us. So I'm going to call this, I'm going to put that right here, and I'm going to zoom into this, and I want to give it basically a rounded corner like this. Now the size doesn't matter, the height would matter, but the size doesn't matter. I want to make the height about the same as a single cell. So that looks good, right? So it's a single row, basically the height of a row, which is sufficient. And we don't probably need any. I'm going to do a shape format. I'm going to do no outline here. And let's do a shape fill. The shape fill doesn't matter. We'll just use a default color, which is fine. Of course, the shape fill, of course, is going to be based on the appointment status. So it's going to be dynamic. All right. So we have it. And the size. Now what I want to do, we'll give it a specific name. That's very important because it is this name that is going to be automatically used inside the code. So I'm going to give it a name. We're going to call this sample appointment shape. Sample appointment shape. So that's the name of it. So we're going to have to duplicate that for each appointment in there. And what I also want to do is I want to use another shape for a particular, I'm going to duplicate that, and I'm going to give this, let's do this. I want to give it a height. Let's give it a height. All right, let's give this a height of 0.22. Make it a little bit bigger so we can fit it. 0.22. This I'm going to give it a height of 0.21, slightly less, right? Slightly less. 0.21. Okay, so now this shape, I also need a shape for the picture. So I want to add in a picture of the contact. So this particular picture, of course, is going to be, I'm going to give it the same width, 0.21. It's going to be an exact circle. And then this, what I'll do is I do want to give this a border, and I don't want to give it a fill on this one. So what we'll do is we'll do a shape outline of white, and we'll do a shape fill of nothing. Okay, no fill. I want to make sure, let's zoom out. I want to make sure that is very small, which is perfect. That's what I want. That should be sufficient here. Okay, I like that. The length of it doesn't matter because I'm going to use the length or the width of this particular column. It's going to be equal to whatever the column is. And I want to give this a name too, because I want to call this out because I'm going to be duplicating that. I'm going to call this sample contact shape. So this one, call it sample contact shape. So let's do this sample CONT, right? That's going to be for the contact picture. So we have two sample shapes, and I want to assign a macro to each one of these. So I'm going to hold down the control because when I select on those, when we duplicate them, it is this macro that's going to be used. So we're going to call this schedule appointment select. We're going to write that macro. Now that macro is empty for right now. Inside the schedules, we have appointment select, which is nothing. We have refresh, which is nothing. So we're going to write those macros, but that way when we duplicate these shapes, it'll automatically be assigned. So that's going to be a lot easier when we make it up. Okay, this looks good. I like the way that that's looking so far. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding those shapes. So I want to duplicate those shapes for every single appointment that's going to be associated. All right, so once we have those shapes, we can now ready to sort our macros. So basically what I want to do is I want to know every single appointment for the given month. Now we have all of our appointments here. However, I want to know only those appointments. I want to run an advanced filter, and I want to know only those appointments for a given month. How do we know what month we're on? Well, we're going to use this. This is our month start date. This is a month start. It's a name range based on the first day of the month. I can run criteria. I can run an advanced filter based on that. So it's based on our appointment date. If I add in our appointment date into criteria right here, and then I create two different criteria, those numbers are referred to dates, right? We really want to see them in number format. That's going to help us regardless of the date format. It'll work just fine. So what I do want is I want to have any appointment date that's greater than or equal to month start and any appointment date that's less than or equal to the end of the month. Now, the end of the month, we're going to use EO month formula for that, and we're going to use 0 months ahead, 0 months back. So that existing month. So that's going to create our criteria. I want all of those results to come directly inside the results. But I also want to know the picture, right? I want to know what is the picture, right? Remember, we have a named range for that. If we go into the formulas, name manager, we have something called contact picture. So if we scroll down here, let's sort by names and go to contact picture, we have a dynamic named range based on that. So what I want to do is I want to extract a picture because I want to put that picture inside that little circle, right? I want to put that contact picture right here, and I'll put it directly, just like you saw in the sample. So to do that, I want to make sure that we don't necessarily need to look it up. So what I'm going to use a formula based on the contact ID here, and that's going to extract. So when we get our results, I'm going to take all these pictures and I'm going to place them directly inside here using a formula, and we can use index formula for that. We're going to index the contact picture. We're going to match it based on the contact ID. And then we're going to return in a single column. If there's an error, we're going to return blank. So what that's going to do is going to return the contact picture for every contact ID. And we're going to use a formula, so that means I can clear out the results no matter what, and then just bring down the formula based on number of results. So that way, if we have no results, let's clear out all of that data here. Whoa, all the way too far in this Excel. So we've cleared out all the data. So now all I need to do is just bring down the formula for however many their data exists. Okay, so that's what we're going to do based on this criteria. So we're going to write a macro to do just that on schedule refresh. So let's go ahead and write that macro now, and it's inside our module called schedule macros. Now I've got a bunch of dimension variables here, which we'll go throughout. Okay, we're going to focus directly, of course, on the schedule. So we want to focus, that's going to be with that schedule. So inside that, the first thing what we want to do is clear all the existing shapes. That's very important, because if there's any existing shapes, every time we refresh it, I want to clear it out. So how are we going to do that? Well, the first thing to do is we're going to focus on that schedule. So let's write that out now. So I want to clear all the shapes, right? At least only the shapes associated with those appointments. So clear all existing appointment shapes from the schedule. So we can do a loop that for each, and we have a dimension appointment shape right here, appointment shape as a shape, for each appointment shape in schedule dot shape. So we're going to loop through every single shape inside that scheduling sheet. Next, appointment shape. Okay, so what do I want to do? I want to look for, and I want to wrap it in on error zoom next and on error go to 0, just in case there's not found or there's an issue with that. If we're going to use check to based on the shape name, if in string, and what is that shape name? Appointment shape dot name, and then we're going to look for anything that contains appointment item. Appointment item is greater than 0. Greater than 0, that means the name appointment, it contains appointment item. Then what I want to do is delete it. Then appointment shape dot delete. So we're deleting anything that contains the word or text string appointment item. Delete appointment shape. Okay. Next up, also for the contact name. So what I'm going to do is just copy this, and we're going to update it based on the contact. Remember, our contact pictures also have a shape, and I want to delete those too. So if in string appointment, now this one's not going to be appointment item. We're going to call this contact pick, contact, and there's going to be a very specific reason why they have the same number of characters in the string. Pick, then delete appointment shape, then delete, let's say, contact shape, contact picture shape. All right, so that's going to loop through all of them. Make sure that they're all get deleted. That's going to clear everything out. Now make sure that your buttons here and any other shapes don't include these, or otherwise it's going to delete your buttons too. Okay, let's center these. I think I would like them centered. Just kind of center them. All right, continuing on, what we want to do once we've done that, what I want to do is I want to run that advanced filter based on our appointments, right? I want to run that advanced filter. I want to get all those results here. So we're going to do that inside the code. Let's bring this up just a little bit more here so we have one more space to work with. We're going to focus primarily with the appointments, okay, sheet, making sure that we have that. And now what I want to do is I want to determine the last row, right? The last row is based on A. So I want to get that last row, that's AutoHotkey that does my automatic typing. I want to check if the last row is less than 4, then exit sub. It means there's no data. So if it's not, then we can, what I want to do is I want to clear all the results from Q3 all the way through Y and all the way down. I want to clear that out. So dot range Q3. I like to clear all the results out, especially this formula, through Y, and then we'll just use a large row, 99, dot clear contents, clear previous results. You see, these from scratch are long. That reminds me, if you want me to do more, you want to have a feature that you want to have added in, maybe you want to focus on something, or maybe you want me to fix something for you. I'm doing all that every single week in my Patreon platform. Patreon's a great platform. I've got tons of fantastic, incredible benefits there, including PDF downloads, early discounts. We have if you want to get early access to these workbooks and training, all that is in my Patreon platform. For just a few dollars a month, it's a great way to help support the channel and get a ton more value and get your ideas made inside the workbook. So I hope you'll join us there on Patreon. All right, continuing on. So now we want to run our advanced filter, and we can do that. So let's go ahead and set up that data. So what we're going to do is A3 all the way through H is our original data. So A3 through H in the last row. Let's put in that 3 through H in the last row. And our criteria is going to be M2 through M3. So we're going to add this up. Criteria is going to be M2 through M3. And where do we want those results to go? I want those results to be placed directly inside Q2 all the way through X, not including Y, because Y is going to be created with the formula. Q2 through X. So we're going to put Q2 through X. Okay, and then we want the results going to be coming in there. I want to check for the last row. So what is that last row is going to be based on? It's going to be based on column Q. So last results row is, let's do that. If that's less than 3, well, there's no data. So last results row is going to be based on column Q. So column Q. If it's less than 3, then we don't have any data, so that's fine, but are going to get the last results row. However, if we do have results, then what I want to do is I want to copy down that formula. So dot range Y3 is our first value through Y and the last result row dot formula, we want that contact picture formula, equals dot range Y1 formula dot formula. Okay, so copy down contact picture formula. Okay, continue on. Now that we have that here, I want to check. I want to be able to sort them. I want to first sort them based on dates and then sort them based on times. So to do that, I want, if we have just one row of data, we don't need to sort it. So let's check that. If the last result row is less than 4, then go to no sort. We don't need to sort it out, okay? So then we'll just put no sort down here. Okay, but if there is, I want to sort based on date and time. So how are we going to do that? Well, we can do with dot sort, and then we're going to sort based on, let's call that sort based on appointment, date, and time. Okay, so we're going to focus on that sort. So the first thing what I want to do is I want to sort fields, and I want to clear them. Sort fields dot clear. So clear any sorts that I have. Now what I want to do is I want to add a key. So do sort fields. Let's bring this up here a little bit here so we can see that. Okay, sort fields dot add. I want to add a sort field. I'm going to use the sort key. That key is going to be based on our first different field that we want to sort. And it's going to be based on T3. T3, what is T3? T3 is our appointment date. That's the first one we want to share. So we're going to set that key is going to be equal to appointments dot range and then T3. Good. So we've got that. And now what I want to do is I want to put sort on equals XL sort on values. So we're sorting on the values. And I want to set the order. What is that order going to be? Order is going to be XL ascending, right? Ascending. Okay, we want to sort that ascending. And I want to add a data option. What is that data option? Is going to be equals XL normal. Equals XL normal, right? We're going to do just normal sorting. Okay, XL. Very good. I like that. Now we want to add a second sort. This is going to be sort by appointment date. Next up, I want to sort by appointment time. So I'm going to copy this here. I'm going to paste it down here, and I'm going to base it based on the time. Now the times are located in column U. So all I need to change this is to U. So first the dates, then time, and then we'll just change this to time. So once we've added those, all we need to do is just set the range. So the dot set, where does that sort range? Set the range is going to be equal to, is equal to appointments dot range, and then it's going to be based on Q3 through Y, including Y, must include Y, and the last result row. Good. So now we have that. So and now all we need to do is just apply that. Apply. Okay. So we've applied the sort. So now it's going to sort all items based on that. Okay. Let's go ahead and save our work and just see if we got some data. We have any errors that we can run on. Okay. Sort. In this case, it should be sort on, not con. Although con would be kind of interesting. Con, continuing on, that looks much better. Continuing on, okay, last result row, let's fix that variable result. Okay, all right, continuing on. Okay, go to no sort, and then just make sure that we have no sort down here, not sort, no sort. Good, make sure we have the same names. Okay, so I like that. So now what we do is we've got everything. Let's go ahead and add a month. No errors there. Let's put a month. All my data is in May. So we've got May. So we'll take a look at all of our data. It's all in May. So what we're going to do is go in the schedule and just set the month to May. And then what we're going to do is we're going to run that macro once more and make sure that we have data in our results before we continue on. So continuing on, let's debug that. Sort normal, sort, S-O-R-T, forgot the sort. Okay, good. That should be it, hopefully. All right, continuing on, sort normal. Okay, it looks good. Let's take a look at our data. Okay, we've got our data here. We've got our picture names. Everything looks good. Now that we have all the data, I'm going to loop through all the data, and I'm going to create an appointment based on the shape for every single appointment. And it's going to happen very, very fast. Okay, so how are we going to do that? Well, continuing on, we're going to focus on our results, right? So what we're going to be doing, we already have a variable called result row, right? Result row here. So I'm going to loop through that result row. So we can do that here. Let's go up into no sort here. Let's remove any extra spaces. And we're going to create a starter loop here. For the result row, it's equal to 3 to the last result row. So we're going to loop through every single appointment, next result row. Okay, so we're going to loop through every single appointment. So what I want to do is I want to add in some variables. I need a lot of variables. So appointment ID, I want to set that up into a variable. It's going to equal dot range. It's going to be in Q, right? Q is our appointment ID, and the result row, and that's going to be our appointment ID. Appointment ID. Okay, good. So I've got appointment ID. I'm just going to copy this here, and that's going to make it a little bit faster here as we add in our variables. We want to extract all this variable. Next up, what I want is appointment date. I want to have that date. That date is the date variable. That date's located in column T. We don't need the extra equals here, so we're going to put in T. And that's going to be our appointment date, appointment date. I also want the appointment time. Appointment time, both appointment time and appointment date are date variables. Let's take a look at that here. Appointment time is located in U. So let's do that. And then appointment time. If we take a look up inside here, appointment date and appointment time are dimensioned both as dates. That will help us certain. All right, next up, I want to know the contact name. What is the name of that contact? That's going to need to go inside, directly inside that shape. That contact name is located in column S right here. We're going to put that in there. Column S is our contact name. Okay, now next up, after our contact name, what I want to do is I want to know the appointment status. Appointment status, also string variable, and that status is going to come directly from column W. So appointment status. That status is important because it's going to determine the color of the shape of our appointment inside W. Once we have the appointment status, I also want to know the contact picture in case there is. Contact pic is going to be equal. That's going to come directly from Y, as our formula has already added that in. Contact picture. Great. So we have our contact picture. Now what I want to do is I want to know the row, the status. What I want to do is I've got another variable. I want to look for that status, and I want to extract the row. Now I have a named range called status. So what I'm going to do is determine that, and I want to put that in a variable called status row. We have a variable called status row right here. So I want to put that, but I want to first find it based on the status. But if it's not found, it could create an error. So we're going to wrap it in on error resume next. Okay, so that status row is going to be equal to, where are we going to find it? Admin.range. I'm going to look in the status. That's the named range that we created for all those status. And I want to find it. And what do I want to find? Well, I'm going to be looking for the appointment status. And I want to find Excel values and Excel whole. And what do I want to return? I want to return the row, right? So I want to get status. And that's important because I need to extract color, status row. Okay, and then we want to wrap it in on error. Go to 0. In case it's not found. But now what I want to do is I want to check if the status row does not equal 0, that means it's been found, right? The status has been found, then I can extract the color. Then we have a string variable called status color, and I want to know the status color is going to be equal to where? Where can I find that color? I know the row now. That status color is located in G and whatever the row is. So we're going to extract that into a variable. Status color equals admin.range G and the status row dot, what is it? It's the interior color, interior dot color, right? So I want to extract the color. Add cell color into variable because that is the same color that we're going to color the shape from. okay? And that's only if it's been found, right? Okay, so that's going to say it. Now what I want to do is I want to know how many appointments are in a single day. If I have 3 appointments in a single day, I need to put the first one here, the second one here, the third one here, right? I need to count, right? I need to determine a count. How many appointments? If I know that I've got 3 different appointments on May 6th, I need to determine how many, and we can use the counter to do that. So what I have is another named range that you saw. I said I was going to explain it later. So I'm going to go to the day manager, and we're going to say appointment date results. This is a named range based on column T. So if we look here, we've created a dynamic named range based on all the results of that appointment date. Okay? So all I need to do is count the date in that given to determine how many. So if I have a specific date and I've already pulled that date right here, I want to know how many times this date is contained in that range. And we can use the application count. So how are we going to do that? The day appointment count is equal to application worksheet function. And then we're going to use not match, but I'm going to use the count if. And what am I counting? Well, I'm counting if. We're going to use the application date results just to make sure we have that named right. Formulas, name manager here, this one right here. I'm going to edit that. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to add the brackets. So I'm going to do Control C. I'm going to close this out of here, go back into the VBA here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add the brackets. I'm going to count the results here. And I want to count them based on what? Based on the appointment date, right? So count if, and then based on the appointment date. And that's the get number of appointments in a single day. Okay, so now that we have that, I want to make sure that it is not greater than, let's say, 5, right? I think it's 5. I don't want to put more than 5 here. So what we'll do, why is that? Because I only have so much room. Let's say we only have 5, right? So if it's greater than 5, then set the appointment number to 5. Okay, so if, let's put it down here. I just want to set the maximum. If the day appointment count is greater than 5, then day appointment count equals 5. Set max appointments to a single day. Now, there's ways you can add more, like if you want to shrink it, shrink so you can put in double that and then just shrink the width of that, but that could be for another training. I've done that in others. So that means you could do one left, 2 columns of appointments, one left and one right. So that's possible. We've done that in other trainings. But for this training, we're already long enough, so we'll just keep it the way it is now. So this is going to get the number of appointments in a single day. Once we have that, I want to keep a count of that, right? So I want to know how many we have. So once we set that, I want to set there the maximum. So the day count, if the day count is greater than 1, right? In case there's more than 1, I want to set the number of counts. Then appointment number, I want to keep track of what appointment, which one are we on? If the appointment number is 1, I know where to place it. If it's 2 or 3. So we got to keep track of the appointment numbers in a given day equals appointment number plus 1. Else appointment number equals 1. So we're going to set the number of a number. So we're keeping track the number, track appointment number. That's what we're going to do. I want to track the appointment number, which one we're on. Don't forget then. Okay. So continuing on, now that we know we're setting the appointment number, now we're ready to move on. So what I want to do is I only want to know if the appointment number is 1. If the appointment number is 1, if appointment, meaning the first appointment number equals 1, I want to find out where we look. Then do the following, correct? Only on the first appointment, I want to determine what row we're going to have, right? I need to know where to place this, what column and what row. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loop through. Remember, these are dates, okay? So in order to do that, I want to make sure that we find the right column and the right row to place them in. So I'm going to loop. I'm going to loop from, again, column, from 4 to 34. 1, 2, right? 3 all the way to 34, and I'm going to step 6. So we're skipping 6, right? We're going here, skipping 6 and going here. Then I also want to loop through all the columns from the column 7 all the way to column 13, right? So we're going to loop that, and I'm just going to basically look at the date here. If the date is equal to our appointment date, then I know to place that appointment directly in here. We can do that with 2 loops. So the first one is for the calendar row is equal to 4 to 34, and we're going to step 6, right? Step 6. Okay. Next calendar row. Now I need another loop. Now I want to loop for the columns. For the calendar column is equal to 7 to 13. Next calendar column. I want to look to see if the date's a match. I want to find it. If the schedule dot range dot cells, let's do cells. We have a schedule calendar row calendar column dot value is equal to the appointment date, then we know it's accurate, right? Then what do we want to do? Then I want to set the schedule row equals the calendar row. I want to set the schedule column is equal to the calendar column. Okay, so we're set row for appointment, set the column for appointment, set column for appointment. So now we've set both of those, and now we're good. So we don't need to keep, we can exit out of our loop. Once it's been found, we can exit out of our loop. So when you can use a go to, let's call it create appointment, right? Go to create appointment. Okay, so we can exit out of there. So once we can exit out all the loops, and we can do that. Okay, so we're going to skip down right and down here below that, and we're going to call this create appointment. But what I want to do is, what if it's not? If this is the appointment number equals 1, what if it's not 1? Then else, I want to add the schedule row equals schedule row plus 1, right? What does that mean? That means the first appointment, we know where to place it. We know what column, right? But the first appointment, the second appointment, the third appointment, we're just going to keep incrementing the rows for the appointments in a given day. So I just need to add one. I already know the column and I already need to know the row. I just need to add one to the row. So that's if the appointment number is not 1, because on subsequent appointments in a single day, all we need to do is increment the rows. We don't need to change the column. So that increment row on, let's say, same day appointments. Okay, I like that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go right here, create appointment, right? So we've gotten out here. So we're going to do create appointment. Okay, so now to create the appointment, what do we need to do? First of all, I want to make sure that we actually have a schedule row and a schedule column. If schedule row equals 0 or schedule column equals 0, then we need to skip, then go to next appointment. And I want to put that next appointment right here, next appointment. So we're going to skip everything. If we don't have the correct row or correct column to place it, then we can't do anything else and we must move on. Okay, so first of all, now we're ready to create that appointment. And to do that, all we need to do is take this appointment right here, take this item right here and duplicate it. So we're going to do sample appointment shape and we're going to duplicate that shape. So that's the first thing, schedule dot shapes, and then this is the shape dot duplicate. And I want to give it a very unique name, dot duplicate. Give it a name. What name do I want to give it up? Well, it's going to be equal to, remember the ones we deleted up here? The first thing we did, appointment item, it's going to contain that. That's what I want. That's the name plus equals. So this and what? Something unique, which is our appointment ID and the appointment ID. That appointment ID is unique to every appointment. So now we've duplicated it, but now we can work directly with it. So I'm going to copy this, what we've created here. And now we're going to focus directly on that brand new shape that we created. So schedule, we'll do with schedule dot shapes. With that shape that we've just created, we're going to work with it. So what are we going to do with it? Well, the first thing what I want to do is I want to set that width. So what is it? I want to set the appointment width into a variable. So what is it? The appointment width is going to be equal to the schedule dot cells, right? I want to know the width of that. And then we're going to put it in here. Schedule row dot schedule column dot width. I want to know the width of the set appointment shape width. Take a look at that. So appointment shape width is going to be equal to whatever the width of that column is. I want to set that width. Now I need to know the left position. So the appointment left position is equal to, again, we're going to set the left position of this. So all I need to do is copy this, and I want to know the left position of this. Okay, and that's going to set the left position. All right, so now we've got the left position top. We can focus on that. So now what we can, let's just bring this down here. I'm going to bring it right down here. So we can set that up. That makes a little more sense. So we set the width, we set the point. Now we're going to focus on that shape that we created directly. So we're going to set that dot left position is equal to simply the appointment left, set left position. And the top position, dot top position is equal to the schedule dot cells. And what is it? It's going to be, of course, that schedule row plus 1. I want to add 1 because I don't want to place it. Why is that? Because I don't want to place it directly in here. I want to place it in the next one. It's been found. This is the row the date was found on. I want to place it one below. So we're going to do the schedule row plus 1 schedule column dot top, right, the top position +1, right, +1. Okay, so that's going to place it directly on that. So the top, that's going to be just slightly off the top, right, just a slightly off. And then what I want to use is the width. What is the width of that shape? The width of that shape is simply equal to the appointment width in that variable that we just created above. Set shape width. Now once we set the shape, I want to set the height. Dot height, I'll set a height equal to 15. That's why the height doesn't matter too much. I guess we didn't need to set it. Height of 15. We're going to set that height. And then what I want to do is I want to put some text in there. What text do I want to put in there? Well, I want to put both the time, the appointment time, and the name, the contact name. So we're going to add that text frame2 dot text range is equal to what? We're going to focus on that. But I want to format. I just don't want to put the time in there. I want to format the time. So I'm going to use format. We can also use application, worksheet function, text. That's the same thing. Format, appointment, time. And then what kind of a format do I want to give it? I want to give it something like this. H:MM. We don't have a lot of space. So I'm just going to do A\P. That'll be sufficient. And what else do I want to put up with the contact name? And a space and the contact name and the contact name. So that's it for the text. And then what we can do is you can do on action. Now this is not necessary because we've already assigned the macro to this, right? But if you don't assign the macro to this, it's good to know that you can assign a macro, right? This is the macro that we want to assign, schedule, appointment, select. When we select that, I want something to happen. So what we're going to do is we're going to assign that on action. Assign, let's see, actually we need that in quotes there, quotations. Here, assign macro to shape. Okay, so we've assigned the macro to the shape. And now what I want to do is I want to add the color of the shape to make sure that the status color isn't 0. If the status color does not equal 0, then dot fill, right, we're going to fill that shape. Dot forecolor dot RGB is equal to the status color. Okay, so set shape color. That's it. Now what I want to do is I want to group those just in case it's going to help us. Then dot does not equal 0 here. Then that's sufficient. Okay, so now we've got that. So now what we want to do is I want to be able to group these, right? So I'm going to set a group because I want to group both the picture and I want to group the text shape, basically the contact name shape, into a group together. So group string, we need a string for that. String of basically all the names of the shapes together. Group string is equal to the appointment item, right? It's basically this right here, right? This is the name of this. So we're going to put that equal to this, right? Just starting it out. And we need the quotations right here. Okay, so now that we have the beginning of our group string, we can add in the contact picture if it exists. So I'm going to put add in contact picture. So now once we do it, we're going to set the picture path. What is that picture path is going to be equal to? It's going to be equal to that contact folder. If you remember here, we've set that up here. Inside this, we've got a named range right here called contact pic folder. So we're going to use that, copy that, and go in here and add in some brackets onto that. So we'll add in the brackets. And then, of course, I also want to put in that backslash here to make sure that that exists. So contact picture and the backslash and the backslash here. And what else? And of course we have that contact pic, right? So we need to add that into a contact pic. Contact picture file path, okay? We want to make sure, of course, that's accurate too. And now what I want to do is I want to duplicate this, right? We need to get ready for the contact picture. So I'm going to take this shape here and duplicate it. So it's called sample contact shape. That's the one I want to duplicate and get that ready for the picture. So with the schedule, focus on the scheduling here. Schedule dot shapes sample contact shape dot duplicate, giving it a very specific name. What name are we going to give it? Remember, we've already added the name up here, the ones that we're clearing out. It's going to be called contact pic. So we're going to copy. That's the one I want to give it. And of course, we're going to use the appointment ID, the unique field. So the name is going to be equal to that and the appointment ID. So together, that way it's always unique. Okay, so we're going to say create shape for contact picture. Great. So once we have that, we can, of course, work with it. So continue on. I'm going to copy this because we just created it. Now we're going to focus directly on that. So with schedule.shapes, the one we just created here, what do we want to do? Well, I want to set the position, the left position, the top position. So we can do that with here. So the first thing what I want to make sure is I want to fill that shape with the picture. So I want to check to make sure that it's an accurate path. If directory of the picture path, I want to make sure it's correct before we add it in. .vb directory, continuing down here. What is that? The VB directory. Now I want to make sure that it's accurate. So if it does not equal empty, does not equal empty. It means it's a correct path. And I want to make sure the contact picture, right, does not equal empty, making sure that we have it. Then what do we want to do? Dot fill. I want to fill that shape. Dot with the user picture. And what is that user picture going to be? It's going to be that picture path. Add in contact picture. Great. So now we've added in fill. Now we just want to set the left position. Dot left position is going to be equal to the appointment left. The top position is going to be equal to, just as we did here, the same top position that we set right here. So we're just going to copy that. We can do exactly as we did before. It's going to be the same top position that we set before. Now that we set the top position, I also want to set the on action just as we did. I want to use the same macro that we did before. Assign macro to this. So I'm going to use the same macro that we have. That way, if the user selects on either the picture or the shape, that's going to happen. Either the picture or the text-based appointment shape, then the same thing is going to happen. And that's exactly what I want. Okay, that's it. That's all we need to do to add in that picture. So we can close that up and clear that out. Okay, so we're ending with, we've done with the contact picture. Now we just need to group the shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the group, the string, is equal to the group string, which is what we created before, string. This helps when you have more than one. Of course, we can make it easier on this, but the group string, but it helps when you have a lot of shapes to follow these procedures. And I want it separated by a comma. And what else? Of course, and I want to add the new shape that we've created, which is this one right here. So we're adding that to the group of shapes so that we can easily group them together, both of those shapes. So we're going to set that both in a group. String, we're going to say string used to group appointment shapes. Once we've set those up, we are ready to go. We just want to run a little cleanup. So what I want to do is I want to now group them. So we're going to do schedule dot shapes, and then I'm going to do dot range. I'm going to group them. Shapes dot range. What is that range that I want to create? It's the group array. So I want to create a group array and the group array. Now, what is that group array? We missed a line there. Let's put that in. The group array is equal to, we're going to split the shapes, splitting the shapes based on what? We're going to split the group string based on that delimiter. String based on what? The delimiter is that comma. So we're going to group it. There we go. So we're going to create an array from string. So now we've created an array. Now we can group that array. That makes a lot more sense putting in that. So once we've grouped them, and now we've created an array. So we're going to create that array. Here's the array. And I'm going to group them together. And I'm going to set a specific name for that group. And it's going to be called appointment item group. Okay. That way it's going to be removed automatically. And we'll set the appointment ID. Unique group name. Okay, good. So we've created a group name, and basically it's going to be those two shapes that are grouped together. So once we have that, we're just going to run some cleanup. Let's say clean up variables. This is going to help us before the loop. So I want to set the contact name is going to equal to empty. Clear out contact name. And then also I wanted the group string. I want to group string. I want that equals empty. Let's just clear that out. Clear out group string. Also, I want the status row is going to equal to 0. Clears out the status row back to 0. That's kind of self-explanatory. And also, I want to set the status color. Status color equal to 0. Then go reset status color. Okay, and then we'll reset status row. Reset status row. Okay, good. So we got our code fully commented out there. And now we've set the 0. So that's it. So next appointment and next result. Okay, I like that. Let's go ahead and run that, check for bugs and fix the bugs if any. Of course, always before running our macro, we want to save our code. And with next, saving that code, let's go ahead and run that code, see if there's any issues. Okay, XL should be XL, obviously. And then continuing on, and then day count, that variable is not defined. That should be day appointment account, not day appointment. Appointment count. There we go. Let's continue on and take a look. All right. Ooh, okay, that looks good, except obviously the width and our font. Let's go ahead. What I want to do is I want to set that font. The font's too large. So what we're going to do is kind of take our sample. We have everything, but we do need to say. So I'm going to go in and format, right? I want to format our original shape. I'm going to go into the text options here. and I'm going to go to the properties here, and I'm going to just take out all the margins, except I want to add a left margin. The left margin should be around, all right, let's make it 0.2 because I need to leave room for that kind of 0.2, and then I want to get rid of all the other, right? And I also want to set that font size a little bit lower because to about 9. Let's take a look at that. And of course, I want to, now we have our refresh button that we've already created, so we can assign the macro to that. So I'm going to click on assign macro and then go down here to schedule refresh, clicking on here and see how we look, see if we can get more. All right, that looks pretty good. I like the way that that looks. All right, we do need to, if we have more than one a day, we do need to reset the day count. So I'm going to update that. I got to reset the day count. So let's do that. So all the way at the end here, let's take a look, right? Before we go to the next appointment, I want to reset it. So if appointment number is greater than or equal to the day appointment count, then reset the appointment number equals 0. Else, what do we want to do? Right? Or I guess that's enough. That'll automatically reset it. So basically what I'm saying, if we've reached the maximum number of appointments in the day, reset the appointment number back to 0. Okay. So we can refresh the code here and that'll set it up just right. Okay, good. So now I see, now we've got it right. So Friday 6 has 3 appointments. We've got our correct colors. We've got our pictures in there. It's looking quite nice. All right. Everything's working really good. Saving our work. Now what I want to do is I want to get this navigation so we can click on this month, next month. And we can do that with just a few macros. And I also want to get the select. When I select something here, I want that appointment to load. So there's these macros, and that's all we have to write. So the next macro is appointment select. Now this is going to be easy because all I need to do is use application. I want to extract this appointment ID, whether we've selected it from the shape or from the picture, appointment ID 2. I don't want to place that appointment ID directly inside B8 here. Once that's in there, right, I know I've got a row and I can load in the appointment information. So let's write the code to do that. And that's called appointment select. That's the macro that we've assigned to each of those shapes. And it's relatively easy. So the first thing what we need to do is let's just add in our appointment ID is equal to, let's add in dimensions. I think we want separate. Dimension the appointment ID as, let's do long in this case, which is fine. And the appointment row as long. Okay, so that's, probably don't need appointment row, but let's do this. Appointment ID is equal to, we're going to use the replace, right? Basically, I want to use the application caller, but I want to remove the first 8 characters of whatever we selected. Why is that? Well, let's take a look. We know that we're going to be removing these first 8 characters or removing these first 8 characters because everything else on those shapes is left is the appointment ID. So that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to use the replace to do that. So we're going to use the replace and we're going to use the application caller. That is the name of the shape that called application.caller, the name of the shape that called it. And we're going to use the left. So basically I want to remove the first 8 characters of the application.caller. So we have that, and it's 8 characters that I want to remove. So what do I want to replace them with? I want to replace them with nothing. So what that's going to do is give us that. All right, so now what we want to do is take the schedule.range B8.value equals appointment ID. Okay, and then all we need to do is just run the macro appointment load. Run the macro that's going to load the appointment. All right, let's take a look at that. So now that we have that up there, so we can just select on something and it's going to load it. There we go. Perfect. You see how that works? Automatically, it takes that. Now, if we select on the picture, it's going to be the same thing, right? Selecting even on the picture. So now we've got that appointment loaded up perfectly simply by selecting. Now all we need to do is just get the 3 macros, and then I'm going to let you go. Previous month, this month, and next month. Please don't forget, if you'd like to support this channel, I've got 250 of my best templates on sale right now as an introductory offer. So please check the links down below in the description. That would really help us out, and I'd really appreciate that. Of course, don't forget to comment below. Don't forget to click subscribe, smash that like button, and please share this video if you like this training. All right, so the previous month is relatively simple. All I need to do is pretty much reduce this down, but if it's already at 1, I need to make it 12 and then reduce the year down. So how are we going to do that? Well, that's going to be relatively simple. So let's go ahead and put that in there. So we're going to focus on the schedule with the schedule. And I want to check a few things. If.range B, of course, 2 is our year, right? I want to know what it's on. B2, if we're on the first year and the first month, right? first year and the first month, we can't go back any farther, right? If we're on, our year started in 2022. So if we're at January 2022, we can't go back any farther. That's it. So we need to let the user know. So if B2 value equals 1 and dot range, what is the month? The month is B5, and B5 dot value equals 1, then let the user know. Then message box, let's just put in, you are at the first month and the first year. The first year of the schedule. Of course, you can customize it and put in any years you want. Exit sub. So we can't move forward. Continuing on. So now what I want to know is I want to know if we're currently on January. If dot range B5 equals 1, then on January. Okay. Right. So then what do we need to do? Then if we're going previous, then I need to make the month December. And I also need to reduce the year by 1. So else and if, not January. Okay, so not January. So if we are in January, I need to set B5 to 12. And I still need to set B2 equals B2 minus 1. So that means the year, dot range, B2, which is the year, B2 equals dot range B2 minus 1. Increment the year down 1. Dot range B5. B5, of course, is the month. We're going to set that to January. That's going to be equal to 12. Set month to December because it's currently on January. Good. So what if it's not January? And if it's not January, all we need to do is increment the month down 1 to whatever its current position is. So that would be B5 equals B5 minus 1. Increment month down 1. Okay, very good. And then, of course, I want to run the macro that's going to refresh the schedule. So this macro right here, schedule, refresh, just copy that and refresh the schedule. Once we've reset the month, it'll work automatically. Okay, so we're going to paste that down here. Run macro to refresh schedule. Run macro to refresh schedule. All right, continuing on here. We're good to go. I think that's pretty much it. No need to do anything much. Let's go ahead and run that, make sure that it's working. Then we'll copy that and update it for the next month. Okay, so previous month, assign the macro here, paste it in here, click OK, and then we'll click previous month. Okay, good. That looks very good. There's no data on the previous month, so everything's looking just correct. Now what we want to do is we want to do next month. So I'm going to copy all of that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste it during here. And then I'm just going to make some updates. So the first thing what I want to do for the next month is I want to check if we're on the last month. So how are we going to know? If I'm on the last month, we know we've got how many, let's say 9 years here, something like that, right? So if I'm on 9 years, I want to make sure if, let's double check it here. I also need to assign the macro to this one right here. Assign the macro. Okay, so this we know is 9. If we're on month 12, and this is 9, then we're on the last month of the last year. So let's write some macro for that. So if B2 equals 9 and B5 equals 12, then we need to let the user know they're on the last month and the last year of the schedule. Very good. So that exit sub, they can't move on if they're on that. Just as I'm reminding, let's run. I want to assign the macro schedule refresh to this to make sure that we've done that as well. Schedule refresh, that means when we change a year, it automatically refreshes as well. Okay, saving our work so far. Okay, continuing on. Now what I need to know is if it's on December, and that's going to be 12, and then what I need to do is I need to increment the year up 1, right? Year, increase the year. Then we need to increment the year up. So we're going to plus that, up 1, right? Not down, up. And I also want to set the month to January, right? So if we're currently on December, we need to set the month to January. All right, so what if it's not December, right? Not December. Okay, then what I want to do is increase the month up 1. Simply increase the month up 1. And that's relatively simple. Very good. So that's going to run the macro. So that's all. That's all we need to do is copy this macro here, assign that to the associated button, which is the next month, assign the macro, paste that in here, click OK, click next month, and let's go previous month and make sure I'll assign refresh the schedule. I have to assign this macro, right? We want to make sure we refresh the schedule, putting that here. Oh, just got to set the right year. We have no data on year 2030. That should be correct. And now make sure that we have data. Okay, let's take a look. That looks good, right? Previous month, next month to June. I like it. Now all we need to do is run the macro for this month, right? I want to do this month. So what is going to be this month? The macro is relatively easy. First of all, I want to do schedule dot range B5, right? B5 dot value is equal to the month of what? The current date. The month of the current date. Setting the current month. Let's put a comment in there. Set current month. I also want to set the current year. So how are we going to do that? Just in case there's an issue. On air resume next. Schedule dot range B2 dot value is equal to the schedule. Remember, we have years at dot range. Years, we have a named range called years. And I want to find the current year. I want to use find. And I want to find what? What I want to find the year of the date, the current year, right? I want to say Excel values. I'm going to use Excel formulas in case you hide it. Formulas, right? If that column is hidden, formulas will work and values won't. So that'll work. Excel dot whole, okay? Dot row. I want to extract that row, and then I want to do -1. And then just rub an on error, go to 0 in case there's an error. If it's not found, it could create an error. And then, of course, we want to run the macro that's going to schedule refresh. Okay, so that's this month. I'm going to copy that here. And then let's go ahead and assign the macro here. Assign the macro. I'm going to change the years on that because I want to make sure the current year is automatically set, right? 27, right? June. Clicking this month, okay, let's update that. That's not going to work. The year, oh, whoops, should be -17, right? If I find it, I want to know the row, right? I want to know the row here. So -17, obviously not -1. Let's do that again. All right, that should work much better. Clicking on this month here. All right, that looks really good. I like the way that looks. Super cool. Okay, so we've created this really, really cool automatic contact schedule, dynamic, complete with dynamic statuses, contact pictures, dynamic text, the ability to add, delete, save contacts. Of course, we also have the ability to add, delete, and save appointments. And we created this awesome, really dynamic schedule, all right? In our Patreon platform, for those members, I'll be adding drag and drop and anything else you might want. So please let me know in the Patreon comments. If you're not on Patreon, now's the time to get in. Thank you so much for this incredible training. Don't forget to comment below. Let me know what kind of trainings you want. Do you like larger, bigger trainings where we go over the code, or do you like from scratch ones? All right, let me know. Thanks so much for your continued support, and we'll see you next week.